Mic's on. All right, cool.
Sometimes these thoughts in my head speak so loud. Every little thing that I think about just builds on top of the pain and doubt. Even though I wanna just let it out, I try to act like I don't mind it. Try to keep my mouth so quiet, but sitting there in my silence just seems to amplify it. When I thought that keeping this inside would make it better, I never thought that I would end up ruining it forever.
All right, we're vertical also on YouTube.
Together, I end up making more regrets, making more regrets. I don't want you to promise you can change everything and make it better, cause you can bet I'm gonna end up ruining it forever. And every time you think you got everything put back together, I end up making more regrets, making more regrets.
Helplessness in prison by a selfish bitch. Chew me up and
breaking my mental state. Yeah, we're
evil as they come, vindictive as they make them. My friends keep asking me why I can't just walk away from them. I'm addicted to the pain, the stress, the drama. I'm drawn to shit. I guess I'm a mess, cursed and blessed, but this time I ain't changing my mind. I'm climbing out this abyss. You're screaming as I walk out that I'll be missed. But when you spoke of people who meant the most to you, you left me off your list. Fuck you, hip hop, I'm leaving you. My life sentence is served, bitch, and it's just my mind feels like an arch enemy. Can't look me in the eyes. I don't know what hurts the most. All in go, reliving my memories, and they're killing me one by one. Falling from grace, I watch it all come apart. Knowing I could've changed it all from the start. Fighting myself, I always lose. Fighting myself, I always lose. Falling from grace, I watch it all come apart. Knowing I could've changed it all from the start. Fighting myself, I always lose. Fighting myself, I always lose. Put me in my misery. My mind feels like an arch enemy. Can't look me in the eyes. I don't know what hurts the most. All in go, reliving my memories, and they're killing me one by one.
all right. And post that. That's live on the threads. All right, all right. Need to monitor my own activities. Yeah, you know what? So yeah, I was up late playing Rivals last night, and you know, just skimming through the news in between sessions, and this was my feed at one point.
Me necesito y puedo temblar.
Just, you know, breaking the U.S. is bombing Caracas. Then we got TRT World showing the Chinooks. Get a pretty good look there on those.
Mira esa mierda, explotaron allá toda esa mierda porque tú me estás explotando.
Marico, se prendió el peo en esta mierda, ¿oyó?
You know, at first I thought, you know, these could be fake. Some of these videos were going to be fake. There weren't a lot of them that I saw. There are some obvious ones that were from when True Promise happened to Israel. But there was like it was probably like 1 out of 20. All the live and post last night was wild. It was going it was going down in real time. Yeah, very crazy. Same video. Here's one. I assume they hit a weapons depot in this video, which is we've seen before with Israel bombing parts of southern Lebanon. whenever they would hit a weapons depot, this is the type of explosions that you would see. But they said that the United States was bombing their military bases in Caracas and other parts of Venezuela. So that's exactly what I expected to see whenever they were doing that. This one probably shows an explosion happened shortly afterwards. Or this was a lot of the videos combined. Yeah, this was a looked like a Black Hawk or some sort of helicopter firing into a military base.
¿Cómo explotaban?
Hold on, I'm still trying to post. Let me post over here.
Otra.
All right.
No, marico, esto no puede ser en serio.
Marico, vamos a mover.
Yeah, I think this is just a compilation of all the videos. But I knew most of them were real because of the Spanish that they're speaking, the dialect. And also, obviously, in the videos that were fake, that were from True Promise 2 or 1, they're speaking Arabic in those videos, so pretty easy to tell. But yeah, they said that they bombed Venezuela for about an hour, I believe. From what I was listening to.
Son las 1:58 de la mañana. Están atacando el fuerte Fiuna.
Si es una bomba, las bombas caen donde sea.
Okay.
Mira allá, mira lo quemado. Pues llámame mamá.
All right. So yeah, just a reminder of all this. You don't invade and bomb and exploit poor countries.
Third world is not poor. You don't go to poor countries to make money. There are very few poor countries in this world. Most countries are rich. The Philippines are rich. Brazil is rich. Mexico is rich. Chile is rich. Only the people are poor. But there's billions to be made there, to be carved out and to be taken. There's been billions for 400 years. The capitalist European and North American powers have carved out and taken the timber, the flax, the hemp, the cocoa, the rum, the tin, the copper, the iron, the rubber, the bauxite, the slaves, and the cheap labor. They have taken out of these countries. These countries are not underdeveloped, they're overexploited. It means capitalism also can never stay home. It goes abroad. If you ever saw the film Controlling Interest, there's a corporate president who says, those corporations that stayed regional in New England years ago and decided not to go national, we can't even remember their names. They died. We had to go national. And those of us who are not national know we have to go international. We have to invest abroad. So one of the laws of capitalist motion development is this inexorable expansion. And that means expansion into an expropriation of the third world. A process that's been going on for about 400 years, perpetrated by the Portuguese, the Spaniards, the Dutch, the Belgians, the French, the English, and most recently, most successfully, most impressively, by the Americans. that is by the ruling classes of these countries, not by the ordinary people. The ordinary people simply paid the costs of empire. The ordinary people simply sent their sons off to die on the plains of India or in the jungles of the Congo or in Latin America, wherever else. But that expropriation of the third world has been going on for 400 years, brings us to another revelation, namely that the third world is not poor.
I like how they loop that around. Perfect cut. All right, yeah. What did Trump have to say about this? This was his from his statement this morning at 11 o'clock, I believe. I stayed up until like 4, and then I was like, all right, I gotta go to bed. Yeah, I woke up right around when he started doing this, when he went live with this speech. But let's check it out.
Late last night,
I'm so tired. Yeah, me
and
too.
early today, at my direction, the United States Armed Forces conduct.
I swear to God, this like closed captions on why is the font size 50%? I didn't set it to that. Allow for different caption style. No, turn that off. I want that off. Anyways.
Did an extraordinary military operation in the capital of Venezuela. Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since...
Like no one's ever seen before.
It was a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice. This was one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might and competence in American history. And if you think about it, we've done some other good ones, like the attack on Soleimani, the attack on al-Baghdadi, and the obliteration and decimation of the Iran nuclear sites just recently.
I was so tired watching this.
In an operation known as Midnight Hammer. All perfectly executed and done. No nation in the world could achieve what America achieved yesterday, or frankly, in just a short period of time. All Venezuelan military capacities were rendered powerless as the men and women of our military, working with U.S. law enforcement, successfully captured Maduro in the dead of night. It was dark. The lights of Caracas were largely turned off due to a certain expertise that we have. It was dark.
It was an inside job.
And it was deadly.
And because I don't recall them saying that they hit power stations. I didn't see that detail anywhere, at least not to my knowledge. It's possible that they did.
But captured along with his wife.
Seems like sabotage.
Celia Flores, both of whom now face American justice. Maduro and Flores have been indicted in the Southern District of New York. It's Jay Clayton, for their campaign of deadly narco-terrorism against the United States and its citizens. I want to thank the men and women of our military who achieved such an extraordinary success overnight with breathtaking speed, power, precision, and competence. You rarely see anything like it. You've seen some raids in this country that didn't go so well. They were an embarrassment. If you look back to Afghanistan, or if you look back to the Jimmy Carter days, they were different days. We're a respected country again, like never before.
What?
These highly trained warriors operating in collaboration with U.S. law enforcement.
It'd be funny if it wasn't just so ridiculous.
Very ready position. They were waiting for us. They knew we had many ships out in the sea, just sort of waiting. They knew we were coming. So they were in what's called a ready position. But they were completely overwhelmed and very quickly incapacitated. If you would have seen what I saw last night, you would have been very impressed. I'm not sure that you'll ever get to see it, but it was an incredible thing to see. Not a single American service member was killed, and not a single piece of American equipment was lost. We had many helicopters, many planes, many people involved in that fight. But think of that, not one piece of military equipment was lost, not one service member was, more importantly, killed. The United States military is the strongest and most fearsome military on the planet by far. With capabilities and skills our enemies can scarcely begin to imagine. We have the best equipment anywhere in the world. There's no equipment like what we have. And you see that even if you just look at the boats. You know, we've knocked out 97% of the drugs coming in by sea. 90%. Each boat kills 25, on average, 25,000 people. We knocked out 97%. And those
Knocked
drugs
out
mostly
90
come from
what?
a place called
Knocked out 97% of the drug boats?
Venezuela. We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious.
So we're with the plan, at least his plan from here. So we're the Fire Nation. Yeah, the plan from what he's described is an occupation of Venezuela, an occupation of 30 million people.
Then it has to be judicious, because that's what we're all about. We want peace, liberty, and justice for the great people of Venezuela, and that includes many from Venezuela that are now living in the United States and want to go back to their country. It's their homeland. We can't take a chance that somebody else takes over Venezuela that doesn't have the good of the Venezuelan people in mind. We've had decades of that.
Press exit.
We're not going to let that happen. We're there now, and what people don't understand, but they understand as I say this, we're there now, but we're going to stay until such time as the proper transition can take place. So we're going to stay until such time as we're going to run it, essentially, until such time as
we're going to run it essentially.
As everyone knows, the oil business in Venezuela has been a bust, a total bust, for a long period of time. They were pumping almost nothing by comparison to what...
I want to know what Chevron's statement is on this, because Chevron operates in Venezuela.
They could have been pumping and what could have taken place. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, and start making money for the country. And we are ready to stage a second and much larger attack if we need to do so. So we were prepared to do a second wave if we needed to do so. We actually assumed that a second wave would be necessary, but now it's probably not. The first wave, if you'd like to call it that, the first attack was so successful, we probably don't have to do a second, but we're prepared to do a second wave, a much bigger wave, actually. This was pinpoint, but we have a much bigger wave that probably won't have to do. This partnership of Venezuela with the United States of America, a country
he's trying to ad-lib, but there's not much to ad-lib, right?
Involved with because of what we were able to do and accomplish, will make the people of Venezuela rich, independent, and safe. And it will also make the many, many people from Venezuela that are living in the United States extremely happy. They suffered. They suffered. So much was taken from them. They're not going to suffer anymore. The illegitimate dictator Maduro was the kingpin of a vast criminal network responsible for trafficking.
A partnership. This is a forceful partnership. I don't think that's a partnership.
And illicit drugs into the United States. As
there's no smoothing this over.
He personally oversaw the vicious cartel known as Cartel de las Solas, which flooded our nation with lethal poison.
Should have just removed all the U.S. sanctions.
Of countless Americans, the many, many Americans, hundreds of thousands over the years of Americans died because of him. Maduro and his wife will soon face the full might of American justice and stand trial on American soil. Right now, they're on a ship. They'll be heading to, ultimately, New York, and then a decision will be made, I assume, between New York and Miami or Florida. But we have people where the overwhelming evidence of their crimes will be presented in a court of law. And I've seen it. I've seen what we have. It's both horrible and breathtaking that something like this could have been allowed to take place. For many years after his term as president of Venezuela expired, Maduro remained in power and waged a ceaseless campaign of violence, terror, and subversion against the United States of America, threatening not only our people, but the stability of the entire region. And you all saw it. In addition to trafficking gigantic amounts of illegal drugs that inflicted untold suffering and human destruction all over the country, all over in particular the United States, Maduro sent savage and murderous gangs, including the bloodthirsty...
First they said it was fentanyl, and then they switched it to cocaine. So, like...
gang, Tren de Aragua, to terrorize American communities nationwide, and he did.
And then he just comes out and says, "Oh yeah, we need to take over the oil." That's what it is.
They were in Colorado. They took over apartment complexes.
Oh no, not an apartment complex.
They were brutal, but they're not so brutal now. And I just have to congratulate our military.
So hold on. So if he already took care of the apartment complex problem with the gangs in the apartment complexes, why are you still going after Maduro? It doesn't make any fucking sense at all.
And everybody in our National Guard, because the job that they've done, whether it's in Washington, D.C., where we have a totally safe city, where it was one of the most unsafe cities anywhere in the world, frankly, and now we have no crime in Washington, D.C. We haven't had a killing. We had the terrorist attack a few weeks ago.
Oh no. What'd I do?
A little bit of a different kind of a threat, but we haven't had a killing in a long period of time, 6-7 months. We used to have two, on average 2 a week in Washington, our capital. We don't have that anymore. The restaurants are opening every...
Oh, I gotta close some tabs. Closing tabs. I thought that Chicago was the crime capital. It probably is. I don't know. You know, every few minutes in Trump's mind, there's a new crime capital of the United States. Okay, that's not gonna help either. What do I need to close? Tell me what I need to close here.
Everyone's happy.
There we go.
They go in, they're walking their daughters, they're walking their children, their wives, they walk to restaurants. Restaurants are opening all over Washington, D.C. So I want to thank the National Guard. I want to thank our military. And I want to thank law enforcement. Been amazing. And they should do it with more cities. We're doing it, as you know, and we're doing it in Memphis, Tennessee right now, and crime is down. We've just sort of started a few weeks ago, but crime is down now 77%. And the governor of Louisiana called, great person, and he wanted us to help
whoever
him,
that
as
is,
you know, in a certain very nice part of Louisiana.
What?
And we have done that. And it was a rough section, and we have crime down. I understand it's down to almost nothing already after 2.5 weeks.
Grandpa rambles for 20 minutes.
It's down to almost nothing. And we've only been there for 2.5 weeks. Can't imagine why governors wouldn't want us to help. We also helped, as you know, in Chicago, and crime went down a little bit there. We did a very small help because we had no working ability with the governor.
They were in NOAA? Oh, okay.
It was a disaster.
When they made
it knocked down crime,
no, they're in Mar-a-Lago. This is from Mar-a-Lago. Are you saying they were in Louisiana?
Pulling out of there when they need us. We'll know. You'll know. You'll be writing about it. And likewise, Los Angeles, where we saved Los Angeles early on.
Oh, won the Battle of Los Angeles. Yeah.
The police department made a statement that if the federal government didn't come in, we
ICE
would have
was in
lost
okay,
Los
yeah.
Angeles. That's long after the fires. That's when they had the riots in Los Angeles. We did a great job. Got no credit for it whatsoever, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. We don't need the credit. But we'll be pulling out when they need us. They'll call, or we'll go back if we have to. We'll go back.
It's just rambling now.
In various cities. But the place that we're very proud of is Washington, D.C., because it's our nation's capital. We took
the
it
self-fellatio, yeah, no.
crime-ridden mess to
No
being
kidding.
One of the safest cities in the country. But the gangs that they sent raped, tortured, and murdered American women and children. They were in all of the cities I mentioned, Tren de Aragua. And they were sent by Maduro to terrorize our people, and now Maduro will
That's
never
not even true.
again be able to threaten an American citizen or anybody from Venezuela. There will no longer be threats.
Okay, so
For
yeah,
years
so
I've
no longer a
highlighted
threat, so
the
we can live
stories of
Venezuela
the
alone
innocent
now, right?
Americans
And he's the
lives
one on the Epstein list, right? Speaking
so
of.
heartlessly robbed by this Venezuelan terrorist organization. Really one of the worst. One of the worst. They say the worst. Americans like 12-year-old
Is it one of the worst or the worst?
Gary from Houston. Beautiful Jocelyn. And then Gary, what happened to her? They, as you know, they kidnapped, assaulted, and murdered by Tren de Aragua animals. They murdered Jocelyn.
Low energy Trump. He's
Left her
not
dead
good.
under the bridge. There was a bridge that will never be the same to so many people after seeing what happened. As I've said many times, the Maduro regime emptied out their prisons, sent their worst and most violent monsters into the United States to steal American lives. And they came from mental institutions and insane asylums. They came from prisons and jails. The reason I say both, they sound similar. Actually, prisons a little bit more hostile, a little bit tougher. A mental institution isn't as tough as an insane asylum, but we got them both. They
Hannibal
sent from their
Lecter.
mental institutions. They sent from their jails.
Hannibal
prisons.
Lecter.
They were drug dealers.
The late, great Hannibal
They were drug
Lecter.
kingpins. They sent everybody
He doesn't say
back
that
into
anymore.
the United States.
Wonder why.
But no longer. And we have now a border where nobody gets through. In addition, Venezuela unilaterally seized and sold American oil, American assets, and American platforms, costing us billions and billions
Jails
of
are
dollars.
different from jails. No, prisons,
This was a
yeah.
while ago, but we never had a president that did anything about it. They took all of our property. It was our property. We built it. And we never had a president that decided to do anything about it. Instead, they fought wars that were 10,000 miles away.
It's not your country.
We built Venezuela oil industry with American talent, drive, and skill. And the socialist regime stole it from us during those previous administrations, and they stole it through force. This constituted one of the largest thefts of American property in the history of our country. Considered the largest theft of property in the history of our country. Massive oil infrastructure was taken like we were babies, and we didn't do anything about it. I would have done something about it. America will never allow foreign powers to rob our people or drive us back into and out of our own hemisphere. That's what they did. Furthermore, under the now deposed dictator Maduro, Venezuela was increasingly hosting foreign adversaries in our region and acquiring menacing offensive weapons that could threaten U.S. interests and lives. And they used those weapons last night.
We build because we
Potentially in league with
destabilize.
the cartels
Yes.
operating along
Yes.
our border.
He's on
All
his
of
mafia
these
shit right now,
actions
yeah.
were in gross violation of the core principles of American foreign policy, dating back more
But
than two
again,
centuries.
you know, this is the imperialist cycle, right? You go in, you destroy so that you can have your companies come in and rebuild. And then while your companies are there rebuilding, then that money now gets transferred back to you, the imperialist, rather than the country, because they are now in your debt for having to rebuild, for your companies having to rebuild their country that you destroyed.
And not anymore.
It's a cycle of exploitation.
All the way back, it dated to the Monroe Doctrines. And the Monroe Doctrine is a big deal, but we've superseded it by a lot, by a real lot. They now call it the Monroe document. I don't know. It's Monroe Doctrine. We sort of forgot about it. It was very important, but we forgot about it. We don't forget about it anymore. Under our new national security strategy, American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned again.
I'm sorry, the Monroe Doctrine is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. Holy shit. That's amazing, actually. I can't believe how dumb that is. Every bot and Stan account is preaching doctrine.
Won't happen. So just in concluding, for decades, other administrations have neglected or even contributed to these growing security threats in the Western Hemisphere. Under the Trump administration, we are reasserting American power in a very powerful way in our home region. And our home region is very different than it was just a short while ago. The future will be, and we did this in my first term. We had great dominance in my first term, and we have far greater dominance right now. Everyone's coming back to us. The future will be determined by the ability to protect commerce and territory and resources that are core to national security. These are core to our national security. Just like tariffs are, they've made our country rich, and they've made our national security stronger than ever before. But these are the iron laws that have always determined global power. And we're going to keep it that way. We will secure our borders. We will stop the terrorists. We will crash the cartels, and we will defend our citizens against all threats, foreign and domestic. Other presidents may have lacked the courage or whatever to defend America, but I will never allow terrorists and criminals to operate with impunity against the United States. This extremely successful operation should serve as warning to anyone who would threaten American sovereignty or endanger American lives. Very importantly, the embargo on all Venezuelan
Just a reminder, this is at 1.2x speed, so
and oil remains in full effect.
He was very sleepy.
The American Armada remains poised in position, and the United States retains all military options until
If we remove the threat, then why are we still there?
Met and fully satisfied. All political and military figures in Venezuela should understand what happened to Maduro can happen to them, and it will happen to them if they aren't just fair, even to their people. The dictator and terrorist, Maduro, is finally gone, and Venezuela people are free. They're free again.
Venezuela.
It's been a long time for them, but they're free. America is a safer nation. This morning, it's a prouder nation this morning because it didn't allow this horrible person and this country that was doing very bad things to us.
Problem solved, right?
And the Western Hemisphere is right now a much safer place to be. So I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank General Raisin Cain. He's a fantastic man. I've worked with.
There's no way this guy's name is Raisin Canes.
A lot of generals. I worked with some I didn't like. I worked with some I didn't respect. I worked with some that just weren't
General
good.
Kentucky Fried
But
Chicken.
this guy is fantastic. I watched last night one of the most precise attacks.
The reason
on
Cane's
sovereignty.
someone seasoned chicken
an
ass
attack
shit.
for justice. And I'm very proud
Oh
of him,
my
and I'm very
God.
proud of our Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, who I'm going to ask to say a few words. Thank you very much.
Yeah, his words were also pointless. Anyways, give me a recap. Actually, my brain fell asleep halfway through that. No JD.
They getting too close with this stuff, man. We got to do something drastic right now. Give me that headset. Y'all in position? Strike Venezuela right now. Nick, strike! Give me that control. I do it my damn self. Boom! Yeah! Tell you what? His wife there. She'll bring her ass too! Hold on. Oh, shit. Ah. Oh, man. Take her. Answer no question. If I find out you answering questions, I'm gonna put your ass on the front line, and I'm gonna drop another strike.
There's currently no leader in Venezuela. What are you gonna
Well,
do?
we gonna run that thing until we find somebody who gonna do what the hell we say.
Do you think Maria Enchilada Tequila would make a good leader for the country, or?
Nobody worry about her. She can't run nothing. She ain't got no respect. Next. I tell you what. Mexico better not close their eye. They better sleep with one eye open. Them strikes on the way. They think I'm playing. I got the button right here. Say I won't. Okay. They getting too close.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it was. Yeah. Maria Enchilada Tequila. It was funny that they asked him if she's gonna take over, and he's like, "Oh, well, she's not qualified," basically. Yeah. So we kidnapped Maduro. Maduro arrives in New York.
I'm watching the same pictures as you are, and we're seeing a large group of people walking off that plane, slowly in a group, deliberately. The steps lit, and it looks to me that that man just about to reach the bottom of the stairs, seemingly in bare feet as far as I can make out, his head covered, surrounded now by a considerable
This is just a perp walk. This is all this is, right?
Agents and others, something like half a dozen. Somebody behind him guiding him, and he's being led. He was led down those airplane steps by the half dozen or so who were ahead of him. And he's now stationary as a transfer is made across the tarmac towards what we understand will be a helicopter, and that's what will take him or her, whoever that is, with their head covered. It will be a helicopter transport, we understand, towards the MDC in Brooklyn, the Metropolitan Detention Center. As you watch them walking very slowly and very deliberately.
In Mamdanistan, shameful, deeply haram. Yes.
Those agents who are either side of him, one holding either arm, three behind.
They don't need this many people to perp walk him. This is just a show of force, basically. They're just making it a clown show.
Are chained.
Same thing that they did to Luigi. Regime change then versus now.
It is imperative that Saddam Hussein faces justice and that we depose him swiftly.
Sir, for what reasons are we invading Iraq?
Yeah, so many reasons. They have weapons of mass destruction, first off. That's the big one. But also we're bringing democracy to their people and toppling a terrible dictator.
If you have any issues with this, ask Congress. They voted for this.
This is about freedom and nothing else. Well, we want the stuff. I'm sorry, U.S. forces bombed Venezuela and captured Nicolas Maduro in order to get the stuff. Stuff? Sorry.
We want stuff.
We like the stuff that they have, and we want to have it.
That's our stuff, actually.
Who will be in charge of the country now? Shit. Us, right? Yeah, us. Because then it's easier.
Yeah, amazing how Congress couldn't bother to do an emergency session today. It's like almost like they just they approve already. So why even why even get together? I saw the comparison of Republicans when a Republican president wants to invade a place, or I'm sorry, like the Republican stance is basically we'll just do an invasion and then kidnap their president and do resource extraction. And then the Democratic version would be, well, first we need to get congressional approval, then we can invade them, kidnap their president, and then do resource extraction. That would actually be better for some reason. No, it's the same thing.
For us to have their stuff, if we'll just run the country and we'll just have the stuff. So yeah. Also, Maduro was bad.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me about it, Chris Hedges.
The kidnapping of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife solidifies America's role as a gangster state. Violence does not generate peace. It generates violence. The immolation of international and humanitarian agreements, as the U.S. and Israel have done in Gaza and as took place in Caracas, generates a world without laws, a world of failed states, warlords, rogue imperial powers, and perpetual violence and chaos. If there is one lesson we should have learned in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and Libya, it is that regime change spawns Frankensteinian monsters of our own creation. The Venezuelan military and security forces will no more accept the kidnapping of their president and U.S. domination done as in Iraq to seize vast oil reserves than the Iraqi security forces and military or the Taliban. This will not go well for anyone, including the United States.
I do agree. We have not seen what has yet to come. Yeah. Oh yeah. Check this out. Hold on. Here's Tom Yamas.
In the streets, raising the Venezuelan flag. Venezuelan Americans singing and dancing in the streets, raising the Venezuelan flag. Many here telling me that they hope to return to their home country. They also have hope that democracy will finally arrive to Venezuela. But there are also questions about who will now rule this country. Venezuelan Americans singing and dancing in the streets.
It's like, hey, why don't they just go, call the ICE number if they want to go back, and then ICE will safely deport them, like they always say on my TV every day.
Nicolas Maduro and his wife solidifies America's role as a gangster state. Violence.
Yeah, we're just the gangster state. Yeah. Tell me about it. Our changing climate.
Southern District Court of New York. In the middle of the night on January 2nd, 2026, U.S.
Safely
forces
deport them to
struck the
Sudan,
capital city of
exactly.
Venezuela. There in Caracas, at least 7 blasts lit up the sky. U.S. forces targeted military bases and so-called strategic targets in a precision raid that sowed chaos and destruction throughout the Venezuelan city and its surroundings. As the smoke cleared, Venezuelan military personnel and innocent civilians lay dead. The toll of the injured and dead is unclear at this moment.
I heard it was up to 40.
But it seems that under the cover of that bombing campaign, another mission was carried out. The U.S. Delta Force captured the president of Venezuela, Nicolas.
If you remember last night, there was reports that allegedly Reuters said that there was boots on the ground, right? And nobody else could confirm that there was boots on the ground. There was no official statements that there were boots on the ground, and it wasn't until an hour or so later that Trump released a statement that they kidnapped Maduro. I don't know, but I think U.S. forces can hold the whole country, the capital, maybe. Yeah. I don't think they can hold the. It's going to be the same thing as Iraq. It's going to be the same thing as Iraq.
Maduro and his wife, and quickly flew them out of the country. By 9 a.m. Eastern Time, the Southern District Court of New York indicted Maduro and his wife, First Lady Celia Flores. They were charged with narco-terrorism and conspiracy to possess destructive devices against the U.S., among other counts. But the real question is, why? Why did Trump viciously attack Venezuela and kidnap their president? Is it really all just in the name of the war on drugs, or perhaps is there a larger force?
Yeah, low-key, what did his wife do?
This video is made possible by my amazing viewers who support me on Patreon. Over the last few years, my revenue from ads and sponsorship has dropped dramatically.
Can't just be married to the president?
If this trend continues making...
Alright, gotta skip that, sorry.
To understand the...
Yeah, my point. It's all about the oil.
To understand the January 2nd attacks, we need to pull back to the sharp buildup of forces and probing attacks that have occurred over the last year. When seen in their totality, the US straight up capturing another country's president and flat out bombing them unprovoked reveals a cruel logic. Starting on August 19, 2025, the US started amassing what would soon become the largest force mobilized in the Caribbean since the Cuban Missile Crisis. And just a few days later, on September 2nd, those forces started probing. The US fired a missile at an alleged drug trafficking boat. 11 people were killed. And in a twisted moment of gloating, Trump posted the video of the destruction on social media. Soon, a cascade of unprompted illegal strikes rained down on shipping vessels off the coast of Venezuela.
So now, at this rate, we've killed almost 200 people in this whole fiasco, right?
By the end of December 2025, U.S. forces destroyed 34 boats, killing 115 people. But in that barrage lay an important anomaly. On December 10th and 20th, the U.S. seized, not destroyed, 2 Venezuelan oil tankers, claiming that that oil was used on some black market to fuel the drug trade. This hints at something larger at play.
I just realized Trump is Al-Qaeda on YouTube doing the head videos. Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. That's what's going on here, yeah.
US, and Trump more specifically, perhaps weren't just interested in the perceived threat of drugs, but instead in securing the rich oil deposits underneath Venezuelan soil. To be clear, many forces are driving these attacks, like the perceived threat of a socialist government in South America, Secretary of State Marco Rubio's long crusade against South American leftists, and of course the specter of drugs. But what often gets left out of this swirling mess of imperialist forces is the simple fact that Venezuela has oil. And not just some oil. Venezuela is home to the largest proven oil reserves in the world. And thanks to the extensive nationalization of the oil industry by socialist leader Hugo Chavez in 1998, as well as the subsequent sanctions by the US across the first 2 decades of the 2000s, very little of that oil has been exported into the insatiable, oil-thirsty maw of the United States, which for a fossil fuel-soaked regime like Trump's is unacceptable. Ultimately, this large-scale attack on Caracas and the kidnapping of Maduro should be seen as an extension of Trump's American energy dominance proto-fossil fascist agenda. And indeed, it's yet another instance of the US's insatiable appetite for fossil fuels turning into violent conflict. From siding with Iraq in the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s to protect oil shipments out of the Gulf, to Operation Desert Storm in 1991 to stabilize and protect oil interests again in the Gulf, to the Iraq War in 2000, the US has used everything from spreading democracy to drugs as an excuse to maintain the flow of oil to its multinationals and ultimately to its reserves. Because the US runs on oil. And with Maduro out of the way, the US can, as they have long done, prop up a puppet that is amenable to big oil plundering Venezuela's natural resources to line the pocketbooks of US-backed corporations like ExxonMobil and Chevron. This is fossil imperialism, clear as day. And it reveals that the abolition of fossil fuels is not just a matter of mitigating climate change, but instead one of battling against imperialist intervention and destruction.
Yeah, pretty obvious, right? Why is Trump invading Venezuela from GDF? Hey, Rainbow, how's it going?
Is because we want to surround ourselves with good neighbors.
Hold on.
President, why is running a country in South America America first?
Well, I think it is because we want to surround ourselves with good neighbors. We want to surround ourselves with stability. We want to surround ourselves with energy. We have tremendous energy in that country. It's very important.
We want to surround ourselves with good neighbors that are actually ourselves because we're running it. So hey, hi me, nice to meet me. Instead of those brown people that are trying to run the country. This press conference was nuts. Yeah, we watched the good neighbors equals me. Yeah, we watched the whole thing earlier, except for the part where he took questions, which I guess this is what this is from. And then they asked him if Maria Corina Machado would be able to run the country, and he's like, I don't think she's qualified actually. So yeah. It's like when you expect the promotion at your job and then they just hire somebody else instead.
Important that we protect it. We need that for ourselves. We need that for the world. And we want to make sure we can protect it.
If history offers any lesson, it is that U.S. presidents have sometimes turned to foreign confrontation in search of political relief. With low approval ratings and looming midterms, Trump could be tempted toward such a show of force. The recent U.S. strikes on Venezuela and the reported capture and removal of President Nicolas Maduro, announced by Trump early on January 3, 2026, invite comparisons with George Herbert Walker Bush's 1989 invasion of Panama and the capture of Manuel Noriega. Here's what we know so far about the attack on Venezuela this morning.
Over the course of the night, aircraft began launching from 20 different bases on land and sea across the Western Hemisphere. In total, more than 150 aircraft, bombers,
and Colonel Sanders over here,
fighters, intelligence, reconnaissance,
Colonel Raising Cane's, Colonel Taco Bell,
surveillance, rotary wing were in the air last night. The force included F-22s, F-35s, F-18s, EA-18s, E-2s, B-1 bombers, and other support aircraft, as well as numerous remotely piloted drones.
CBS News has apparently been rewarded for its recent kowtowing to the Trump administration and has been told by unnamed officials that Delta Force, the Army Special Forces unit, carried out the operation to capture Maduro. In an echo to Bush's justification for his Operation Just Cause to capture Noriega, Trump has accused Maduro of drug trafficking and working with gangs designated as terrorist organizations. During Trump's first term, Maduro was charged
I never got
in
the Twitch
federal court
notification.
in
What the
Southern
hell?
District of New York for narco-terrorism. U.S. Secretary of State Marco
Hey, who gets the $50 million now?
Rubio apparently told the governor of Utah that the kinetic action we saw tonight was deployed to protect and defend those executing the arrest warrant. Governor Mike Lee was curious as to the legality of the attack, which was carried out without...
We blew up their bases. We blew up their military bases so that we could kidnap the president. Got it.
...congressional approval. The Associated Press reports at least 7 blasts sent people
also
rushing
fucked, yeah.
into the streets, while others took to social media to report hearing and seeing the explosions.
And the United States retains all military options until United States demands have been fully met and fully satisfied.
The Miami Herald reports residents across multiple neighborhoods of Caracas had reported hearing loud detonations beginning around 1:30 a.m. local time. Witnesses described the blasts as distinct, spaced minutes apart, and accompanied by the sound of aircraft flying low over the city, a rare and alarming occurrence in a capital long accustomed to political turmoil but not open aerial attack. Trump posted a statement on Truth Social. The United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolas Maduro, and has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country.
That shit was nuts.
This operation was done in conjunction with
still can't
U.S.
believe
law
it.
enforcement. Sources inside the opposition told Sky News they believe Maduro's capture was a, quote, negotiated exit.
Maduro and his wife, both indicted, gave up and were taken into custody by the Department of Justice. Maduro and his wife were embarked aboard the USS Iwo Jima.
This
So it was
comes
either
one
you come
day
with us or
after
we're going to
AP
kill you. One of the
reported
two,
that
right?
Venezuela is open to negotiating an agreement with the United States to combat drug trafficking, the South American country's President Nicolas Maduro said in a
Someone said they think the negotiations were used to pinpoint their location before this operation. Yeah, I could see that, yeah.
taped interview aired Thursday on state television. However, Maduro asked, "What are they seeking?" It is clear that they seek to impose themselves through threats, intimidation, and force. Later adding that it's time for both nations to, quote, start talking seriously, with data in hand. The U.S. government knows, because we've told many of their spokespeople, that if they want to seriously discuss an agreement to combat drug trafficking, we're ready. If they want oil, Venezuela is ready for U.S. investment, like with Chevron, whenever they want it, wherever they want it, and however they want it. Chevron Corporation is the only major oil company exporting Venezuelan crude to the U.S. Venezuela has the world's largest proven oil reserves. The months-long escalation, part of Operation Southern Spear, saw U.S. attacks on suspected drug smuggling vessels, killing some 115 people, and a drone strike on a port reportedly conducted by the CIA. There was also the naval quarantine of oil tankers. Trump had ordered a total and complete blockade of oil tankers coming
so is
to
this stuff
and
still
from
going on
Venezuela,
too?
CNN reported, which, according to them, suggested an economic motive to the U.S. military campaign in the region.
We're going to be taking out a tremendous amount of wealth out of the ground, and that wealth is going to the people of Venezuela and people from...
Yeah, press X to doubt, for real.
from outside of Venezuela that used to be in Venezuela. And it goes also to the United States of America in the form of reimbursement for the damages caused us by that country. In other words, we'll be selling oil, probably in much larger doses because they couldn't produce very much because their infrastructure was so bad. So we'll be selling large amounts of oil to other countries.
Indeed, Trump has made clear the economic motivation behind his aggressive actions against Venezuela. In a Truth Social post from December 17th, Trump said, "Venezuela is completely surrounded by the largest armada ever assembled in the history of South America. It will only get bigger, and the shock to them will be like nothing they have ever seen before. Until such time as they return to the United States of America, all of the oil, land, and other assets that they previously stole from us. The illegitimate Maduro regime is using oil from the stolen oil fields to finance themselves, drug terrorism, human trafficking, murder, and kidnapping. For the theft of our assets, and many other reasons, including terrorism, drug smuggling, and human trafficking, the Venezuelan regime has been designated a foreign terrorist organization. Therefore, today, I am ordering a total and complete blockade of all sanctioned oil tankers going into and out of Venezuela.
We're not in the part...
The illegal aliens and criminals that the
Now in the part of Star Wars where the Queen was taken prisoner, pretty much.
Maduro regime has sent into the United States during the weak and inept Biden administration.
Hey, if they don't want people from Venezuela in the United States, then why did they kidnap the president of Venezuela and bring him to the United States? That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Are being returned to Venezuela at a rapid pace. America will not allow criminals, terrorists, or other countries to rob, threaten, or harm our nation, and likewise will not allow a hostile regime to take our oil, land, or any other assets, all of which must be returned to the United States immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. On the ground in Caracas this morning, the terror is palpable from eyewitness videos. Chinook helicopters carrying American commandos can be seen and heard buzzing overhead. Loud explosions from aerial bombardment turned Venezuela's capital into a full-blown war zone. The lines appear to blur between military and civilian targets as civilian traffic closely straddles the periphery of flaming bomb craters. This morning, Trump gave a press conference at Mar-a-Lago to update the press on the details of the operation.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So,
Mr. President, is it possible that the U.S. ends up administrating Venezuela for years?
Well, it won't cost us anything because the money coming out of the ground is very substantial, so it's not going to cost us anything.
Does
the money coming out of the ground. It's not going to cost us anything because of the money coming out of the ground is going to be so substantial. That's like you're just like crossing. You're just like complete exploitation. That's what we're going to do. We're here to exploit the country for its wealth. And this money is not going to go back to the people.
U.S. running the country mean that U.S. troops will be on the ground? How will that work?
Well, they always say boots on the ground. Oh, so we're not afraid of boots on the ground if we have to have. We had boots on the ground last night at a very high level, actually. We're not afraid of it. We don't mind saying it.
Blatant war profiteering,
the country is run properly. We're not doing this in vain.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys saw like the Avatar movies. But that's exactly what's going on here. You know, I think it's in this last movie where they finally like admit that the company that's there to do resource extraction on the planet is well, the reason the military is there is because they were sent there by the company that wants to do resource extraction. Venezuela, that was some mean Bush. I don't know. I don't know what that means. Don't worry, guys. No U.S. service members killed in Venezuela operation. The quote from Avatar. Oh, I don't know the quote. I'm sorry.
CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata joins us now from West Palm Beach. Charlie, we got an incredible amount of detail.
Don't worry, guys. Everyone that matters is still alive. I've seen the meme so many times today. Send it to me.
From general known as Raising Cane, from the ages of the service members involved to the number of aircraft, what stood out to you?
Well, the sheer size of this attack and extraction. You mentioned earlier 150 aircraft that left from 20 different air bases.
I can't say his name anymore.
20, the oldest 49. And the way it was layered, he said he described it as both audacious and discreet, meaning they had.
What? Hold on. What the fuck is he saying?
Number of aircraft, what stood out to you?
Well, the sheer size of this attack and extraction. You mentioned earlier 150 aircraft that left from 20 different air bases.
Yeah, I hit a freeze frame there. I need to go. Actually, I'm gonna go back and catch the VOD because there is a freeze frame right there where he was like.
Bases. I think the youngest pilot was 20, the oldest 49. And the way it was layered, he said he described it as both audacious and discreet, meaning they had to go in there and they took out what's called enemy air defense suppression. That's what they went into do to pave the way for these helicopters. You've seen those images of the helicopters going in. They came in at around 100 feet from the sea. And what happened before that is an array of U.S. fighter jets and aircraft that were brought in. And he told us F-22s, F-35s, F-18s, B-1 bombers, and, of course, a number of drones, in addition to those helicopters. Now, they reached the compound of President Maduro at 1:01. They didn't complete the entire extraction until 3:29. So you're talking about 2.5 hours where you had U.S. troops in a vulnerable situation. And we were also told there were several engagements, both going in and coming out, meaning they took gunfire. Now, our sources have told us today there were a few injuries. Some of those were gunshot wounds. Some of them just injured from doing what is pretty heavy work to try to do this. There's going to be some injuries in that. None of them are life-threatening.
Sprained ankles.
All the aircraft returned without losing any aircraft. So it was a multi-layered. He said the United States Air Force, Navy, Marines, Special Forces. This was driven by Delta Force. Those are the people who are responsible for the extraction itself. In fact, there was an elite team that brought them in there, too. So it was done with Drug Enforcement Agency, done with the CIA that provided some of the intelligence, and the boots on the ground, as it were, Delta Force, Army Delta Force, elite rangers who went in there for the extraction itself. We're also told that this massive military buildup that you and I have been discussing, right, for months, will remain in position and poised, was the way they described that there. So not necessarily having a U.S. military presence inside Venezuela, because I know I was listening to Ed and Margaret a few minutes ago. There seems to be a lot of unanswered questions. There are some U.S. Citizens there, and if the Trump administration wants to encourage investment and oil investment, there may be an element of security. We don't know what that is, but if in terms of what's happening offshore, where there are around 12 warships, including USS
Michael Bay would direct it.
The F-18s that I mentioned earlier that are on board the Ford,
can only be
the F-35s that are in Puerto Rico. In fact, there are about 15,000 troops throughout.
Oh, they cut him off, man. What happened? What happened? Somebody added me. I don't know who that. Starring Chris Pratt and John Krasinski. Yeah. What was I looking for over here? I'll find it eventually. All right. Yeah. Here is so that was that's how we covered it in the West. You know, everything, the good old boys made it. Everybody's good. You know, nobody died. That matters. And you know, a couple sprained ankles. Everybody's fine. Here's Leon.
Our top focus on beyond at the Savo. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, who was captured by U.S. forces in Caracas, arrived at a military base in the United States on Saturday evening. The left-wing leader was captured after months of threats and pressure tactics by U.S. President Donald Trump in a swift but audacious military operation. Now, Maduro was seen surrounded by FBI agents as he descended the boarding stairs of a U.S. government plane at a New York State National Guard facility and was slowly escorted along the tarmac. Vehicles which were possibly transporting Maduro were filmed leaving the heliport. The helicopter that may have been carrying Venezuelan president was later seen over Manhattan.
Was the FBI that escorted him?
According to reports, Maduro will be transferred to the Metropolitan Detention Center in the Sunset Park neighborhood of Brooklyn. Maduro and his wife, seized overnight from their homes on a military base, were first taken aboard a U.S. warship on their way to face prosecution for a Justice Department indictment, accusing them of participating in a narco-terrorism conspiracy.
What's around his neck?
Following the military action, Trump said that the United States will run Venezuela with a group and will tap...
Should I go get him, guys? He's in New York. Yeah, go get him.
Trump said he was designating people from his cabinet to be in charge in Venezuela, but gave no details of how this would work.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we
don't want somebody to come in like, you know, like Pinochet or something, right?
Country.
We want to make sure he's a good guy.
Safe, proper, and judicious transition, and it has to be judicious, because that's what we're all about. We're going to have our very large United States.
They did this from they did this from Palm Beach.
Anywhere in the world.
They did it from Mar-a-Lago. Like, what the fuck?
And spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, and start making money for the country.
Well, Trump also indicated that U.S. troops could be deployed in Venezuela in the near future and said that Washington is not afraid of boots on the ground.
Well, you know, they always say boots on the ground. Oh, so we're not afraid of boots on the ground if we have to have.
We got to do the occupation, guys.
At a very high level, actually. We're not afraid of it. We don't mind saying it. But we're going to make sure that that country is run properly. We're not doing this in vain. This is a very dangerous attack. This is an attack that could have gone very, very badly.
The U.S. President also described the current state of the Latin American country and said that U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio had been in touch with Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, who had been sworn in as Maduro's successor. Trump touted that Rodriguez was essentially willing to work with Washington.
They're going to kidnap her too?
You have a vice president who's been appointed by Maduro, and right now she's the vice president, and she's, I guess, the president. She was sworn in as president just a little while ago. Had a long conversation with Marco, and she said, we'll do whatever you need.
Problem solved. They got a new president already. All right.
I think she was quite gracious, but she really doesn't have a choice.
Now, contrary to Trump's statement, Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez demanded the immediate release of President Nicolas Maduro, and First Lady Celia Flores Rodriguez came live on stage television alongside senior government and military officials. She said that the country's political and military leadership was unified and fully mobilized.
You know, it's weird that I didn't get these details from CBS News over here. They're over here gloating that nobody died and shit. They're not saying that the new president, who was the vice president, said, "Hey, give me my guy back."
We demand the immediate release of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores, the only president of Venezuela, President Nicolas Maduro. Here is the most important high command of the Venezuelan state, the military high command, the high command of the state, the high command of the Council of the Vice President. All factors are combined. Political factors of national power in Venezuela.
And for more of this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report. Take a look.
Nicolas Maduro and his wife have been brought to New York after being captured in a dramatic U.S. military operation in Venezuela. The couple was flown into Stewart International Airport under heavy federal guard, and they're expected to be processed and detained in federal custody ahead of their arraignment in federal court next week on long-standing narco-terrorism, cocaine trafficking, and weapons charges unsealed in the Southern District of New York. The U.S. government move follows intense military action in Caracas and has triggered international praise and criticism alike. The United Nations Security Council will hold an emergency meeting over U.S. actions in Venezuela on Monday. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Interesting. Yeah, hold on. Give me. Tell me what you said again.
Se activa toda Venezuela y el decreto que ya fue suscrito por el presidente Maduro, único presidente de Venezuela. Hay un solo presidente en este país que se llama.
Yeah.
Se activa toda Venezuela.
All of Venezuela is mobilized and decree that has already been signed by President Maduro, the only president of Venezuela. There is only one president in this country, and his name is Nicolas Maduro Moros.
Se activa toda Venezuela.
I don't think she's gonna comply, like little Marco said there. Yeah, I had some other things saved. Let me see. Yeah, I already saw that. Oh yeah. Max Blumenthal had an interview with her.
Your father, Jorge Antonio Rodriguez, was a revolutionary socialist.
Her father was a revolutionary socialist.
Of a guerrilla struggle.
They expect her to just roll over?
Against the neoliberal, heavily repressive Fourth Republic. This government captured him in 1976, and it tortured him to death. You subsequently went into government and were able to continue his legacy under Hugo Chavez and now under Nicolas Maduro. And
that's wild.
And have witnessed from the inside a hybrid war waged from the outside. So you've seen the continuation of this struggle from out of power to the heights of government here. And I wonder if you have any lessons you can impart to people from my country or other nations in South America, for example, where the left is struggling against neoliberal governments and repressive security services and has not experienced what it's like to actually be in power and to be part of a leftist government.
Yo te puedo decir de mi experiencia personal.
I can tell you from my personal experience listening to your entire question that there is great immorality and lack of ethics in the matter of human rights in the world. You know that the issue of human rights has been one of the wild cards for intervention in Venezuela. My father was assassinated in a Venezuelan state security organization, a truly unprecedented situation. Yesterday we said goodbye to an extraordinary man, Dr. Jose Vicente Ringo. His former vice president, former defense minister, former foreign minister, commander of Hugo Chavez. At the time, 1976.
No supe nunca de la Organización de los Estados Americanos, ni del sistema de naciones de derechos humanos de las Naciones Unidas. Nunca. Y éramos muchas familias.
We were many families suffering as a result from the disappearance, torture, murder of our loved ones. Never anyone from abroad came close to saying there is a violation of human rights in Venezuela. On the contrary, it was considered a representative democracy, a model to follow in the world. But it was in Venezuela where the figure of the disappeared was invented.
No fue, y eso lo recalcamos mucho, ¿no?
It was not during the Argentine dictatorship, nor the dictatorship in Brazil, nor Uruguay.
Fue en la dictadura argentina, ni en la dictadura en Brasil, ni en Uruguay, fue en Venezuela.
It was in Venezuela that the figure of the disappeared was invented. Nobody knows
Que
that.
se inventó la figura del desaparecido, eso no lo sabe nadie. Porque ese expediente
Because
terrible
that
de violación de los
terrible record of violation of human rights was not convenient to show to the world.
no les convenía mostrarlo. Porque eran los
Because
gobiernos
those governments were at the service of the hegemonic interest of
al
Washington.
servicio de los intereses hegemónicos de Washington.
Yeah, I don't think she's going to comply, man.
Y la dictadura del sur,
The dictatorship of the South, the Condor Plan for the South, also devised by
el
Washington.
plan Cóndor para el sur, también ideado por Washington, era el modelo.
Internationally, it was portrayed as the model to follow. It didn't matter that they were abducting, murdering, and disappearing people.
Ellos mostraban como el modelo que servía para los pueblos. No importaba que estaban reprimiendo, asesinando, desapareciendo. No importaba.
That didn't matter.
Y si algo
I must offer recognition
yo
to the
debo reconocer a
Bolivarian
la Revolución
Revolution,
Bolivariana, que lo primero que hizo fue
because
en
the
esta
first thing our
Constitución,
Constitution did was to create a state of human rights. Venezuela has a constitutional state of human rights. There is no constitution in the world where human rights are constitutionalized in this way.
donde los derechos humanos estén constitucionalizados de la manera que configuren el estado de actuación. Y hoy particularmente,
And today, and particularly in my exercise as civil servant with responsibilities in the government,
en mi ejercicio como funcionaria con responsabilidades en el gobierno, como lo tuve con el comandante
as
Chávez,
I
con el
had with
presidente
Commander Chavez and today with
Bueno,
President
somos
Nicolas Maduro,
muy celosos,
we
muy
are very
cuidadosos,
attentive, very
muy
careful.
cuidadosos. Y Venezuela ha tenido que
We just became a pariah to the world.
vivir más procesos terribles de
And
defensa de la
Venezuela has to
población
go through the terrible process, go through terrible processes in defense of the population in the face of situations of violence.
frente a situaciones de violencia. Las guarimbas
The
violentas quemaban personas vivas.
Gurimbas that
Esa misma
burned. Oh
oposición
man,
cuando fue
what's that?
gobierno viva. Esa misma
Missed it
oposición
again.
cuando fue quemaban personas vivas.
That burned people alive by that same
Esa
opposition.
misma oposición cuando
We've been that for a while. We're just more open about it now. Yeah, I think
fue
so.
gobierno que violaba los derechos humanos. Hoy, estando en la oposición,
When they were in power, they violated human rights. Today, they are in the opposition and still violate human rights.
violentan los derechos humanos. En el caso específico, el bloqueo criminal
The criminal blockade is the most systematic and massive way to violate human rights, and who is leading it?
es la forma más sistemática y masiva de violentar los derechos humanos. ¿Y quién lo lidera? Los mismos que cuando fueron gobierno
The same people who invented the figure of the disappeared, who tortured and murdered when they were in power.
inventaron la figura del desaparecido, torturaban, asesinaban. Es la
I didn't know
misma.
she said all this. Yeah, this gives you some clarity on her stance that she's not just going to roll over. At least I don't think she will. I don't think, it really, and especially from what she said today, it doesn't seem like she's just going to roll over like the Trump administration is saying that she is. It is the same opposition that has not changed its behavior and intents to point out Venezuelan government as violators of human
Es la
rights.
misma oposición que no ha cambiado su forma de comportamiento y pretenden señalar al gobierno de Venezuela como violadores de los derechos humanos cuando hemos tenido que
On the contrary, the Venezuelan state has had to exercise its duty to defend the peace and tranquility of the population, to guarantee the rights of Venezuelans to peace. Well, that is the vision of human rights. And what was the international human rights systems been like? A double standard, the double standard that ruined the old United Nations Commission on Human Rights.
Con la antigua Comisión de los Derechos Humanos de las Naciones Unidas tuvieron que reformatearse.
They had to reformat, and we have pointed out that they are on the same path.
Por el mismo camino, porque utilizan en los derechos humanos
Because they use human rights as a mechanism that at certain moment facilitates and justifies an intervention.
como un mecanismo de intervención internacional que facilite y que justifique en determinado momento una intervención.
And above all, they confuse progressives as well as those on the left.
En el mundo.
que pueden verse confundidos
They may believe falsehoods about the situation in Venezuela, but they can come here.
y pueden creer falsedades sobre la situación en Venezuela. Pero pueden venir aquí. Si yo te mostrara las cosas terribles
If only I showed you the terrible things that they were personally say about the president.
que personalmente dicen sobre el presidente, amenazas de muerte,
Death threats
sobre
about
mi
my
familia,
family,
contra mí,
against me, against my brother, against high personalities from this
y
government.
contra mi hermano, contra altas personalidades de este proceso. Si eso no es libertad de
It's not
expresión,
freedom of expression or debauchery of expression. I don't know into what category they
o
fit.
libertinaje de expresión, yo no sé qué categoría darle. Pero
But in Venezuela,
siempre lo
we've
mismo.
always said it.
Está
Human
garantizado
rights are
el derecho humano, está
guaranteed.
garantizada
Freedom
la
of
libertad de
expression is
expresión
guaranteed.
a unos límites que muchas
At
veces
limits that often go beyond the respect of the dignity of another person.
puede hasta traspasar lo que es el respeto a la dignidad de otra persona.
Huh. Yeah, meanwhile, Elon Musk calls Maduro's capture a clear message to all evil dictators. Shut the fuck up, Elon. How about that?
I want to ask you because
Oh yeah. Hold on, they had him on Fox News.
said that the message is pretty clear: the drug trafficking must stop. So, was this operation a message that you're sending to Mexico, to Claudia Sheinbaum, the president there?
Well, it wasn't meant to be, and we're very friendly with her. She's a good woman, but the cartels are running Mexico. She's not running Mexico. The cartels are running Mexico. And we could be politically correct and be nice and say, oh, yes, she is. No, she's very, she's very frightened of the cartels. They're running Mexico. And I've asked her numerous times, would you like us to take out the cartels? No, Mr. President. No, please. So we have to do something because we lost. The real number is 300,000 people.
Is he doing like a Consuela impression?
In my opinion, they like to say 100,000. 100,000 is a lot of people, but the real number is 300,000 people. And we lost it to drugs, and they come in through the southern border, mostly the southern border. Plenty come in through Canada too, by the way, in case you don't know. But they come in through the southern border, and something.
It's like that's what I heard, right? That's like this, right? There, right?
Peter, what are you doing?
She's still here, Lois. Wasn't she supposed to leave like 2 hours ago?
I thought so. Go ask her what she's doing.
I'm not asking her. You go ask her.
Consuela? An hours ago.
Yeah, what are you still doing here?
I wait for rain to stop.
It's time for you to go home. I don't know about that.
I sleep here.
Okay, whatever, dude. That's a longer video than I thought it would be. Anyways, I guess that's who Trump thinks Sheinbaum is. CNN having a time with it.
Matter, Venezuela has a population of 30 million people, and now that is owned by the United States. Just to think about it from such a simple black and white set of numbers like that. Matter, Venezuela has a population of 30 million people, and now that is owned by the United States.
30 million people owned by the United States. That's okay. Oh yeah, back to the Don Rowe doctrine, whatever that means.
La supuesta premio Nobel que habla de la paz al ver que su país, que Venezuela ha sido atacada por el imperialismo norteamericano.
CNN doesn't see a war they don't love. That's true. Where is the statement from the supposed Nobel Prize winner who speaks of peace when her country, Venezuela, has been attacked by U.S. imperialism? Where are you? Where are those countries that have remained silent in the face of this situation, this circumstance? We as a people, as a working men and women, demand respect first, and second, we are in the streets. First, because we believe in democracy. Just as we went out to vote in July on July 28th for President Nicolas Maduro, and just as all sectors of this country recognize his victory, Today, we demand that the U.S. government, imperialism, and the transnational corporations that we know very well are behind this return President Nicolas Maduro to us safe and sound.
¿Dónde estás? ¿Dónde están esos países que no se han pronunciado ante esta situación y esta circunstancia? Nosotros como pueblo, como hombres y mujeres trabajadores, exigimos primero respeto y segundo, estamos en la calle, primero porque creemos en la democracia. Así como nosotros salimos a votar al pasado 28 de julio por el presidente Nicolás Maduro y así como todos los sectores del país reconocieron la victoria, nosotros hoy exigimos al gobierno norteamericano, al imperialismo y a todas las transnacionales que sabemos muy bien que están detrás de todo esto, que nos regresen sano y salvo al presidente Nicolás Maduro. ¿Dónde está el pronunciamiento de la supuesta?
That boy's spitting. Yeah, anyways. Oh.
The location of opposition leader Machado, and have you been in contact with her?
No, we haven't. No, we haven't.
Mr. President,
do you have any hesitations about Machado?
Mr. President, on Monday.
Oh, I think it would be very tough for her to be the leader. She doesn't have the support within or the respect within the country. She's a very nice woman, but she doesn't have the respect to be the leader.
Oh, sorry, Maria Corina Machado, you didn't get the job. Damn. Next time, I guess. Yeah. Oh, here's very rare footage of a RQ-170 stealth drone returning to Puerto Rico after reportedly supporting last night's U.S. strikes in Venezuela. The RQ-170 Sentinel is a stealthy, high-altitude, unmanned aerial vehicle developed by Lockheed Martin. Thank you, Skunkworks. Thank you, American taxpayers who made that possible.
I would like to thank Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of the State of Israel.
I promise we one day will have a close relationship between Venezuela and Israel.
I myself look forward to visit the State of Israel as soon as we conquer freedom. We will prevail.
And I can announce this, that our government will move our Israeli embassy to Jerusalem.
I would like to thank Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of the State of Israel.
I promise we one day will have a close.
She even said all the right words and everything, man, and they still didn't give her the job. He's down for the count.
Oh my God! Let's go! Let's go! Witness! He is broken in half.
I cackled when I saw that video of her. Yeah, where's the air defense, by the way? Venezuela's air defense made Tehran's look like the Iron Dome. This is embarrassing. They just have the helicopter out there. I still gotta fix that sound alert, by the way. I thought I fixed those. Guess I did not. Oh, this is an old video of an exercise in Miami? Oh, never mind. Ooh. Oh, yeah, and then something exploded in Tehran. A building exploded. Rumored to be building affiliated with the IRGC. That stuff's still going on. Thousands rally in Havana.
Yo soy Fidel. Yo soy Fidel. Yo soy Fidel. Llega a ser mi bandera que un día nuestros muertos alzando los brazos la sabrán defender todavía. ¡Hasta la victoria! ¡Viva el legado de Fidel y de Chávez! ¡Viva el presidente Nicolás Maduro! ¡Abajo el imperialismo! Yo soy Fidel.
You know, I think if you ask like the average American what they think imperialism is, like they wouldn't be able to give you an answer, like at all. I don't think the average American, going to work every day and paying their rent, has a clue what the hell imperialism means. Oh yeah. Venezuelan search for survivors in the ruins of the bombed apartment building in Caracas.
Vamos a buscar personas que puedan estar un poco de repente en resguardo. No hay heridos por ahora, aparentemente no hay heridos de gravedad, pero sí en el Hospital Internacional que está en estado crítico en el hospitalito.
Yeah, just a little American bombings. You know, I've seen these results in the last few years. And I told my buddy what happened, and he was like, "But why though?" Are you serious? Did you tell him that the United States kidnapped the president of another country illegally?
Estamos en vehículo particular, tratando de seguir ayudando personas, militares, para poderle prestar apoyo como ciudadanos, como venezolanos y hermanos que somos.
Swear to God, he's a normie. We have the dumbest normies in the world. I swear. Oh, here's Keir Starmer.
No, I haven't, and
to Donald Trump about what's happened in Venezuela.
No, I haven't, and it's obviously a fast-moving situation, and we need to establish all the facts.
We need to establish all the facts.
That the UK was not involved in any way in this operation, and as you'd expect, we're focusing on British nationals in Venezuela and working very closely with our embassy. And so, I will want to talk to the president. I will want to talk to allies.
Rural living, just not locked in. Exactly.
The facts. I think President Trump is doing a press conference later, so hopefully more information will come out then.
What is clear, though, which the White House has said, is that America
feckless. I think that's what they call this, right? Feckless.
Their leader, Maduro. Some politicians in this country have already condemned that. Do you?
Well, I want to establish the facts first. I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to allies. As I say, I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law. But I think at this stage, fast-moving situation, let's establish the facts and take it from there.
And just lastly, for people who might have family there, or the small number of Brits in Venezuela, there are some there, it might be a small number, but of course people will be very concerned. What would their advice be?
There's about 500 there in Venezuela, and we're working with the embassy to make sure that they are well looked after, safeguarded, and get appropriate advice. So we're working at pace with the embassy on that.
The best answer is it wasn't us.
Number.
So far, I've not met a peers I do like from England. Oh yeah, they had Drop Side News actually getting reporting from the ground in Caracas.
Last night, rejecting the kidnapping of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores.
It says the bombings overnight left people killed and injured. No official casualty figures have yet been released.
We know that the U.S. bombed several sites in Venezuela, both civilian places and also military places. We know there are people who have died, people who are injured. We're still waiting for more confirmation about this from the defense minister. But yes, we are here just watching people.
Yeah, last I heard it was like 40 people that were killed in the bombings.
To listen to people talk about what is happening. There's a stage right there, and just people just talking about what is happening, gathering support, gathering solidarity, and just trying to be strong about what's happening right now. My name is Andreina Chavez. I am reporting from Caracas.
Man, Drop Site News really taking off, going everywhere. All right, give me the NBC nightly news. Hold on, I was waiting for them to upload it. Are you fucking kidding me? January 3rd, Maduro captured. You see how this is different from like the other January 2nd full episode, whatever, blah blah blah. Okay, dude.
Breaking news tonight: Venezuela.
Tom Yamas is Cuban, by the way.
Venezuela's leader captured by American
I don't claim him.
forces, arriving in New York just moments ago after a daring raid inside the country's capital. And now, President Trump says the U.S. will run the South American nation for now. The massive assault inside Venezuela. New images of U.S. forces attacking. Explosions lighting up the night sky. American helicopters in a daring mission over the nation's capital. That country's leader, Nicolas Maduro, captured by U.S. forces. The images of him in custody and late today landing in New York. President Trump saying the U.S. will oversee the country indefinitely.
We're going to run the country until such time.
The images from inside the war room as the strikes went down.
And it was an assault like people have
Nicolas Maduro.
World War II.
What we're learning about the charges Maduro will face in the U.S.
He is a fugitive of American justice.
While Venezuelans in America celebrate in the streets, why they tell me they're happy the brutal dictator is gone.
What does today mean for you?
Weird how they only got one side of the story.
Freedom! And across the Caribbean, the airspace closed due to the attack, creating travel chaos on this busy holiday weekend. Tonight, new details inside the American operation.
An extraction so precise it involved more than 150 aircraft launching across the Western Hemisphere.
New questions and new criticism about the justification for the attack. And what happens now to the South American country?
We're not afraid of boots on the ground.
After a military mission with huge consequences for the U.S., South America, and the world.
Yeah, I'm
this
just
is
gonna
a special edition of NBC Nightly News.
This jerk off session. Hold on, what was Bush doing there?
Now he wished he did.
All of it echoes the U.S. invasion of Panama in 1989.
Yeah.
President George H.W. Bush sent the military to capture dictator Manuel Noriega, who had been indicted for drug trafficking. He was later convicted in the U.S.
And
that
then?
operation, like this one, carried out with no congressional authorization. Today, the administration defending that move.
Yeah, I like how, people are like, oh, well, they should have got congressional approval. They didn't get congressional approval. Like, they haven't had congressional approval to go to war in decades, man. It's probably been like a century by now. Almost.
This was an arrest of 2 indicted fugitives of American justice. It's just not the kind of mission that you can pre-notify because it endangers the mission. Justice. It's just not the kind of...
Countries across the globe viewed Maduro as an illegitimate president who stole an election. His government accused by the UN of crimes against humanity. I pressed him in an interview 7 years ago.
The UN and human rights groups estimate hundreds of people have died because of your administration.
Guys, 2019 was 7 years ago.
They think hundreds of people have died also since you came into power. Why are people who protest you end up either dead or in jail?
No human rights organizations have made me responsible for any deaths. You're lying, Tom, he said. And now, chaotic conditions in Venezuela. Local journalist
called him a liar to his fucking face.
Outside a supermarket.
It's a large line, obviously filled with people trying to get whatever they can to survive what's coming next.
That's crazy. I saw that in the United States during COVID. Actually, you could go downtown in most major cities and see that every day.
While in the U.S., Venezuelans told us they're thrilled.
Why are people here so excited?
We are celebrating freedom and liberty. Thanks to President Trump, we were able to gain our freedom back.
My wife hasn't been able to go home since she was a kid. My kids have never gone to Venezuela, so
oh yeah, go.
Huge.
I'm sure it'll be great. It'll be a great time soon.
Secrecy.
At a gas station.
Cuba now, because Courtney, most of the Pentagon, which you cover, didn't even know about this until last night.
Hey, why didn't he just do the safe deportation through ICE and whatnot? Weird.
Costello, Tom, good evening.
Yeah, Tom, most experts say it will take years and billions of dollars for U.S. oil companies to rebuild Venezuela's decaying oil infrastructure. Venezuela actually holds the largest oil reserves anywhere in the world. 303 billion barrels, more than Saudi Arabia, Canada, Iran, Iraq, Russia.
And they're just keeping it to themselves. Those greedy bastards. They don't want to share all that oil.
President today said the real U.S. goal was to capture Venezuela's oil and natural resources. It now produces less than 1 million barrels a day compared to 11 million by Saudi Arabia, 22 million in the U.S. Because it's producing so little, most experts don't expect a global
Think of the
supply
shareholders,
disruption,
yeah.
but in a few years, more oil supply could mean lower gas prices here.
Oh, it could mean, oh, yeah.
All right, Tom Costello for us. Tom, we thank you. When we come back tonight here on Night
Everybody
News, the
wins.
hope and the uncertainty as the world watches for what comes next in Venezuela.
It could mean lower gas prices. Isn't that what everybody wanted?
It's been a stunning 24 hours. Just ask Nicolas Maduro. He went to sleep as the leader of Venezuela. He woke up to U.S. Special Forces capturing him as assault helicopters obliterated
Man,
his
Tom holds a
military
grudge.
installations.
So many white Venezuelans,
right now,
I know.
Maduro is on U.S. soil, in custody, accused of being a narco-terrorist. The UN has accused him of killing hundreds. When I asked Maduro about that in an...
Dog, we killed hundreds of people in like the last few months from Venezuela. Like, what the fuck? Anyways.
Interview, he said they were lies. Tell that to the families who have never seen their loved ones again after speaking out against Maduro. It was something I heard time and time again.
Tom got the last
today.
word, huh?
The ousting leading to celebrations breaking out from Madrid to Miami. Venezuelan
Insurance agencies have killed millions, yeah.
Maduro's brutal regime. But there are mounting questions about the legality.
So this is all the shit that people got to see this afternoon on the NBC Nightly News.
Operation.
Tell me, you cannot tell me Western media is not 100% complicit with what the United States government does. Every action that the United States government conducts is covered and reassured by the media.
The criminal case against Maduro and his wife and what happens in the region. The president explaining today
Brings in
marks
the
a new
ratings,
chapter in his America First policy. It now includes our neighbors. A dramatic shift in a region now changed forever. We hope to
The America First policy includes our neighbors, actually.
learn more in the coming days.
How
and
far
weeks
away is
as the
Venezuela?
millions
Seems
who
pretty
have
far
left
away,
Venezuela, and those still there wonder what this all means for
A
them.
few thousand miles.
That's Nightly News for this Saturday. I'm Tom Llamas.
Go eat a dick, you fucking dumbass. Jesus Christ. All right. Yeah. All right. ABC News. Give me something else
now
besides
believe
that.
sparklers likely touched off that deadly fire that killed dozens of people at a bar in Switzerland. Investigators looking at video of the New Year's tragedy that shows the alarming moments as the flames quickly spread and a party took a terrifying turn. Here's ABC's foreign correspondent Tom Sufi.
What are we doing, guys?
Tonight, new video capturing the
That looks
harrowing
bad.
moment, flames start engulfing the ceiling inside a bar in the Swiss Alps early New Year's morning. The video shot by a boy who was severely injured in the fire shows a celebration quickly turning into horror. Look closely and you can see multiple celebratory sparklers and the orange glow above them, where part of the ceiling appears to have just caught on fire. Swiss officials say they now believe the deadly inferno that killed at least 40 people and injured nearly 120 more was likely caused by those sparklers. The investigation is ongoing with authorities poring over video from that night.
40 people just sat there and got burned alive? What the hell?
The flames with what appears to be a piece of clothing. People desperately racing to get away from the scene as fire consumes the bar. Letitia's 16-year-old son named Arthur was at the bar to celebrate the new year and is now missing. All I want is to find my child, she says. And Gregory telling us his best friend, Thailand, is also missing.
Maybe he's dying in the fire, maybe he's alive.
Victoria, a survivor, telling me in the crush, many people couldn't escape the underground bar.
It was like a horror movie. People on fire were breaking windows and falling out of windows.
Holy
Late today,
shit.
the owner of the bar telling Swiss media everything was done according to the standards. Authorities are now painstakingly working to identify the dead and the injured. They say many of those injured are fighting for their lives. And tonight, the memorial growing in this ski resort town. Mary, the local prosecutor says the two owners of the bar have been cooperating with the investigation, which will now look at the fire safety conditions at the venue on that fateful night. Mary?
Tom Sufi Burge there on the scene tonight. Tom, thank you.
Yeah, building's on fire. Get the hell out of there. Mamdani signs executive orders undoing some of Eric Adams' orders. How dare he?
The new mayor of New York City wasted no time getting to work after being sworn in on New Year's Day. Zoran Mamdani had said he signed 3 executive orders aimed at delivering on his promise to tackle the city's housing crisis less than 2 hours after his inauguration. He said his team is committed to trying to deliver on that and other issues, no matter the outcome. CBS News political reporter Zach Hudak joins us now from our Washington bureau this morning. So, Zach, break down what we heard from Mayor Mamdani in the first day and a half of his historic administration.
Chanel, I think the big takeaway from his inauguration speech, swearing-in speech, is that he wanted to reinforce that he is a democratic socialist.
Yeah, I'm not sure that he will make a statement,
and
honestly.
he plans to be a progressive. I think he's facing a tension that really any candidate faces once they're elected if they ran at one of the far ends of the ideological spectrums. He is, relatively speaking, a radical. But now he's in office and he wants to get things done. And you can't do that if you don't make friends. We saw just last month, in fact,
be a nice guy.
him go to the White House and have a really, frankly, what we saw at least from it, cordial meeting with President Trump, kind of the boogeyman of the far left. So he's in a position now where he needs to reinforce to his supporters that he still wants to enact these policies. Listen to what he had to say about this.
Beginning today, we will govern expansively and audaciously. We may not always succeed, but never will we be accused of lacking the courage to try. To those who insist that the era of big government is over, hear me when I say this. No longer will City Hall hesitate to use its power to improve New Yorkers' lives.
So, Chanel, there you have it. You have the mayor reminding his constituents that he was elected as a democratic socialist. There was a line earlier in that speech where he said, "I will not abandon my principles for fear of being deemed radical." And I think that was really the theme of what we heard from him yesterday.
Okay, and Zach, speaking of getting to work here, what more do we know about the handoff between Mayor Mamdani and his predecessor?
Well, Mayor Mamdani spoke very cordially, very positively about Eric Adams in that speech. He
I wonder if Eric Adams left all the drugs and guns in his room.
From a boy in New York to mayor, and
like in that video
when Eric Adams said that Mamdani was the candidate he would most want to be stuck in an elevator with. But not long after that, later in the day, we saw the new mayor sign an executive order that actually undid any executive orders signed by the outgoing mayor since he was indicted on federal corruption charges in the fall. So it was a little bit of a pat on the back and then a slap in the face from the incoming mayor to the outgoing mayor yesterday.
All right, Zach Hudak, thank you.
Can you believe he was corrupt? What the hell? Is it true Eric left the country? I don't know. I haven't heard that. Well, here's Grok doing things. I don't.
A post on Grok's X account says it is urgently fixing what it calls lapses and safeguards.
We appreciate you raising this as noted. We've identified lapses and safeguards and are urgently fixing them. CSAM is illegal and prohibited.
This latest controversy comes as more Americans are expressing a general distrust and even hatred of AI. So let's talk to technology journalist and host of the Rip Current podcast, Jacob, joining us now. Somebody give me Jacob's last name in my ear. I appreciate it. It's just Jacob in the teleprompter. Jacob Ward, thank you so much. Your family line would want me to say your full name.
I appreciate that. Hi, Reed.
Segment. So this Grok case, it is pretty horrifying. It looks like even Musk's platform says there's a need for a fix. How does something like this happen?
Well, Happy New Year, Reed. You know, it is really probably not even clear to the makers of the platform itself. This is the nature of generative AI, is that it vacuums up, a planet's worth of data and then regurgitates it as a product. The people who make this stuff don't even really understand why it does what it does. And that's part of why the New York Times is posing.
It generated lewd images.
Why do Americans
Mecha Hitler making CSAM?
That is really the fundamental question that's sort of facing that, the industry at the moment is this.
Why do Americans hate AI? I wonder.
Building toward this stuff, and I think it's fundamentally because of the ways in which these companies don't really understand how their product does what it does, and if it does go on to do what they have promised, which is, for instance, make a tremendously transformative effect on the economy, that's going to wipe out people's jobs. That's going to wind up meaning that who gets a job, who gets a loan, who gets bail is all going to get determined by this technology. All that seems to be just scaring the heck out of Americans going.
I think I heard like you have a 3% chance of landing a job now because of AI.
Icing on the cake here.
Well, and then we see the plan by President Trump and so many tech leaders who've gathered at the White House to throw tens of millions, if not billions of dollars in what to me looks like a modern era space race, right? The U.S. versus China in the AI race. They're throwing money at the problem, but they're also elected officials. How do they square this distrust and even distaste for AI with the fact that they are beholden to voters who put them there in office?
Well, I think they're in a really tough position politically because on the one hand, there's very little you can say that's bright about the American economy at the moment in terms of its growth potential, except for AI. The AI companies, the Magnificent Seven, are accounting for most of the recent stock gains. So if you're an elected official, that's a big part of this. You've probably also been sold on the idea that there's some sort of jingoistic reason to support this industry in its race against China. But, you know, a recent Gallup poll looked at that question with voters, and voters don't care at all whether China gets ahead on this stuff and would much rather see it regulated, even if that slows the industries down. And so elected officials at the federal level are continuing a pattern that we had seen long ago with social media.
They're literally using all the water and energy.
This is, of course, why the states are stepping in here.
And resources.
The federal regulators have been entirely asleep at the wheel with AI so far, Reed.
Well, Jacob, this is something I could spend an hour podcast talking with you about, and so I hope we get to have you back here on CBS News 24/7. I've enjoyed talking to you immensely.
I'd like to know when that is so I can skip that episode.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Ukraine accuses Russia of lying about Putin residence attack.
From a snowy Moscow this morning, the Kremlin keeping up its latest flurry of accusations against Ukraine. That Kyiv was trying to undermine progress towards a peace deal by launching a drone attack on one of Vladimir Putin's residences. Ukraine has ridiculed the claims, but Russia nonetheless promising to toughen its stance.
The diplomatic consequences of these actions by the Kiev regime will be a tougher negotiating position
Zelensky be like,
for the Russian
nah.
Federation.
But Trump repeated this. Trump repeated this before he'd even hit the news waves.
As for the military consequences, our military knows how and when to respond.
That military today releasing images of what it said were its Oreshnik hypersonic nuclear-capable missiles being deployed in Belarus. Ukraine's president says Russia is planning to strike government buildings in Kyiv using the alleged Ukrainian attack as a pretext. Russia claims Ukraine launched 91 drones in a mass attack on the Putin residence. They would have had to fly more than 400 miles through heavily defended airspace en route to the target, a sprawling complex on the northeastern shore of Lake Valdai, itself guarded by 12 nearby air defense batteries. There are no local reports of any explosions on the ground or in the air. And Russia's defense ministry says only 18 drones were intercepted over the entire Novgorod region last night.
I learned about it from President Putin today. I was very angry.
Dumbass.
President Trump meeting the Israeli Prime Minister yesterday, challenged on whether U.S. intelligence had any evidence it had happened.
You're saying maybe the attack didn't take place. It's possible too, I guess. But President Putin told me this morning it did.
As for the timing of this, I mean, politically, it wouldn't be a very judicious moment to strike in this way.
No, I mean, for all sorts of reasons. Firstly, there is an informal etiquette, shall we say, that you don't go after the other side's leaders, or else you face that same threat yourself.
What?
Secondly,
what country would go after the other side's leaders? Well, now that you mention it.
Doing away with all of the goodwill generated by Zelensky's trip
I think two at least.
Florida. And thirdly, the problem is Zelensky did in his Christmas address pretty openly wish for Putin's death. And so in that context, again, this would look a little bit too on the nose.
On Monday, Vladimir Putin ordered his generals to seize the Ukrainian city of Zaporizhia. on its streets today, that too dismissed as part of the Russian information war.
Honestly, I don't take it seriously. These are the thoughts of an idiot.
I don't believe Putin will accept any peace deal. He's such a... He doesn't want to give anything up. He wants to grab everything. This is why I don't believe anything will come out of the peace talks.
President Putin was in front of the cameras again today, talking to his deputy defense minister about care for injured veterans of his special military operation. Almost a mirror image in Kyiv, where President Zelensky was handing out housing certificates to Ukrainian soldiers and their relatives.
Hey, what is it, socialism?
The latest round of diplomacy, with a meeting of the leaders of the
handing out housing certificates
in Paris a week today.
Huh. How weird. All right. UAE to pull forces out of Yemen.
The United Arab Emirates says it is pulling its remaining forces out of Yemen following a Saudi ultimatum to withdraw within 24 hours. Tensions have escalated between the traditional allies over a sweeping offensive by UAE-backed separatists in the south of the country. Now, the United Arab Emirates Defense Ministry said it was withdrawing counter-terrorism teams from Yemen of its own violation. Abu Dhabi had denied being behind the separatists' advance. Now, Yemen's Presidential Council and Saudi Arabia have both demanded Emirati troops pull out. UAE and Saudi Arabia support different groups in the divided Yemeni government. Demonstrators took to the streets to protest the call for the UAE forces to leave the country. On Tuesday, the Saudi-led coalition fighting Yemen's Houthi rebels hit an Emirati shipment at Mukalla port in pre-dawn strike. Saudi state media claimed that the shipment was carrying weapons and combat vehicles for the separatists. Now, UAE denied the claim and insisted that the shipment contained only vehicles designed for its own forces. Hours later, Yemen's Presidential Council declared a state of emergency and broke a security pact with UAE. Now, in a rare step, Riyadh then openly accused Abu Dhabi over its support to the separatists, calling them a threat to Saudi's national security. Tuesday's events came after forces from the UAE-backed Southern Transitional Council marched across Hadramaut and Al Mehra provinces this month. Abu Dhabi denied being behind the separatist advance. Now, the STC is also a key member of the Yemeni government, a fractious alliance held together
update,
by
Eric Adams is in Dubai.
The Saudi-led coalition had warned that it would back Yemen's government in any military confrontation with separatist
Why would he be anywhere else?
And urged them to withdraw. But STC remained defiant, insisting there is no thinking about withdrawal from its newly seized positions. Emirati troops had arrived in Yemen as part of the Saudi-led coalition fighting the Houthis, who had forced the government from the capital Sana'a in 2014 and seized much of the country. Now, the UAE pulled out most of its forces in 2019, leaving only a limited number in the government-run south where a patchwork of militia holds sway. Its final withdrawal follows a rare public dispute with Riyadh.
Oh. Interesting. Yeah, more on that, actually. Saudi-led coalition strikes weapons shipment as Yemen's Al Mukalla port. This is a couple days ago, or a few days ago. The latest news on this being that they basically UAE's pulled out completely of South Yemen. So yeah, which leads me to the Yemeni model.
In the first round of this, Israel has been quite successful. It decapitated Hezbollah. It strikes on Iran, so Iran essentially capitulate. I mean, it offered very little resistance. It's pushed up almost to Damascus, occupying land even beyond the Golan Heights. 90% of Gaza is destroyed. The Arab regimes in Egypt, Jordan, the Gulf have done little to nothing to prevent the genocide. The only country that has stood up in any meaningful way to try and halt the genocide is Yemen. Right. So, I want you to respond to the fact that these, are really, in essence, have to be counted as Israeli and U.S. imperial successes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think in a sense, you are right. These are battlefield successes, right? What Israel and the U.S. behind them have successfully done has been to split off all of these solidarity fronts, these attempts to rebuff Israeli colonial aggression and violence and genocide in Gaza. And Israel has managed to do that successfully, in part because this so-called axis of resistance really is a decentralized network of, proxies, or like state actors, quasi-state actors that have to deal with their own regional context, right? And their own position in the world system. And what Israel has successfully done is been able to manage them independently. So as you named, right, they really launched a very successful war against Hezbollah in 2024 and managed to break their solidarity front with Gaza and to de-link the fronts. And as you mentioned, Yemen has kind of been, Yemen has maintained their solidarity with Gaza. They're able to do that in part because of their distance from Israel, and also in part because just as a smaller power,
but Israel wants to get closer.
So much on the radar of the Americans and the Israelis who haven't developed the full bank of targets, and Israel has been prepping for a war with Hezbollah for years and years. But I think, like, broadly speaking, the main takeaway here is a lot of these actors in the region are not fully able to confront where things are at in terms of the world system, right? So we started this conversation by talking about this terminal crisis of the American century of power, where we're seeing a return to, a turn away from multilateralism and the rule of law, even in the kind of, specious sense in which that actually governed things through the Cold War, and a return to the kind of gunboat diplomacy that we saw in the 19th century, right, where force rules above all. And the question of hegemony is actually not as important as pure military dominance. And that's what Israel is demonstrating, right? They are saying we don't need to abide by any kind of laws and rules and norms. We don't need to respect sovereignty. Syria has no sovereignty. We act as if Lebanon has no sovereignty, and we are asking the U.S. to destroy Iran's sovereignty, right? Because they are not operating in a world of diplomacy. They are operating in a world of pure force. And I think not everyone in the region has reckoned with that. I think ultimately Iran, in its grand strategy, is still ultimately seeking some form of normalization with the West, right? They want Israel to leave them alone. They want to be accepted into the community of states with the permission of the United States. And so even the hardliners in Iran are trying to use force to extract that kind of a concession. And the less hardliners are trying to do, it more overtly through the realm of diplomacy. But I think what actors in the region need to realize is that normalization may not be possible. They may not accept it. There may actually be no path to diplomatic normalization with a state that is intent on the destruction of everyone in their way. And ultimately, I think that is what the Yemenis have reckoned with and realize, is that they are not up against a, quote unquote, rational actor with respect to the norms that were established in the 20th century. And we're looking at something far darker and different.
Well, the Palestinians could have taught them that a long time ago.
Yeah.
The problem, of course, is that the Arab regimes, including in the Gulf, are largely client states. I had dinner in Cairo not long ago with the former Minister of Information for Nasser, who Sadat had put in prison for 10 years, and he made a very prescient point. He said it's not that Israel is strong, it's that the Arab regimes are weak.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's exactly correct. If you are in the region of Israel, there are tough choices to make, right? I speak from a position of privilege in the United States, and I certainly, my family is Palestinian on my dad's side from Gaza. I have not individually had to bear the brunt of Israeli aggression. And so, I recognize that anyone in the region has tough choices to make. But I think what people need to realize is that there is no appeasing this kind of racist colonialism, and that anyone who thinks they're on the good side of empire has only to wait, and only to wait for Israel to turn their attention to them, because their sovereignty is not sacred, right? And I think that this is what history teaches us about colonialism, is that the strategy is divide and rule, divide and conquer, to try and buy off certain alliances for particular geostrategic ends. But anyone who is not thinking critically about their own sovereignty and their own independence is going to suffer very tremendous defeats, whether it's now or whether it's later. And Israel has been very successful in again, that kind of divide and conquer strategy. There are Gulf states that it is convenient for Israel to ally with at present in the United States because of shared geopolitical interests, for example, in other countries in the region, like Sudan, right? We have seen the UAE enter into strategic alliances with the U.S. and Israel and leverage control over, resources in order to do that. But ultimately, as the Israel strike on Qatar demonstrates, is that there are severe limitations to that strategy. And Israel, if it defeats Lebanon, if it defeats Hezbollah, if it defeats Iran, Israel will not stop fighting. It will not stop creating enemies in the region. That is its national identity. It is a Spartan state committed to permanent warfare. And that is not an exaggeration. That's in the rhetoric that you see from Israeli leadership today. It's also in the national identity of Israel going back to its founding, right? This is something that I write about. The myth of Samson is core to Israeli national ethos. This is going back to the 50s and Moshe Dayan's famous eulogy of an IDF soldier that is killed on garrison at a settlement, right, is they keep saying over and over again through their national history, we are Samson, we are Samson, we are Samson. Samson is committed to fighting to the death, even if it means his own destruction. So when I talk about the U.S.-Israel imperial death drive, the murder-suicide pact, that is something that is baked into the DNA of a settler colonial power.
Wasn't their nuclear program called the Samson option? Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. I mean, it is their nuclear program, which they don't admit exists, has long been openly rumored to be called the Samson option. And what that means is that if they face existential threat, they will bring down the world with them.
Well, I just came
U.S. cities are on that list.
I was with Francesca Albanese and Greta Thunberg and Yanis Varoufakis and the courageous dock workers of Italy who have refused to load weapons onto Israeli ships or ships bound for Israel, and of course are calling for general strike. That does seem to be the only mechanism left by which we can halt this very frightening slide into a global authoritarianism, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I think that thinking about interventions at the point of circulation is a really, really critical. It's really critical politically now and moving forward. The world is a very interconnected space now. We live in an integrated world economy. The guns that are, the weapons that are used on Palestinian, many of them come from U.S. weapons manufacturers, right? Those move through ports across the world. They involve workers across the world, workers in the United States. The oil that fuels those, that fuels that weaponry crosses many different international lines. And I think, yes, we've seen this in Italy. We've also seen it in the United States in actions, with organized labor at shiploading sites. That's been happening. The Block the Boat campaign has been happening for years. But we've also seen it from Yemen, right? Yemen has taken advantage of its place in the global flow of commodities to attempt to oppose a naval blockade, and it has punched far above its weight in doing so. In the Red Sea, and in fact has backed down the United States military, right? Backed the U.S. military off. That shows the power of intervention at those.
Yeah, I wonder if we're going to return to the Red Sea now.
Within the kind of
now that we got a W,
supply chains and production networks, and it shows that yes, we may be outgunned, and we may be, they have far more power than us in terms of hard power, but there are ways to think strategically about how to leverage a marginal position to have an outsized impact. So I take great inspiration from those kinds of action and those kinds of solidarity. And I think that's, the exact type of example that we need to be thinking about in terms of how to intervene politically in this very terrifying moment.
It seems like Ansar Allah is a lot more well-armed than Venezuela, I guess. That's my observation, at least. Iran tells the U.S. any intervention is a red line.
The people of Iran are very angry. Protests are raging since the last 6 days. 7 people have already been killed. Now, President Trump has entered the fray. He has warned that the U.S. will intervene if Iranian security forces kill innocent protesters. Iran is standing firm, stressing that any U.S. intervention is, quote, a red line. Until now, protests have spread to 32 cities, including Tehran, Esfahan, Shiraz, Karaj, and Fasal. Across more than 17 provinces of Iran, at least 7 people have been killed in the clashes. Between the protesters...
I want to see what Western media says about this.
In Iran, protests are erupting over much of the nation over soaring inflation and the sinking value of the country's currency. Thousands taking to the streets and shopping malls for the past 3 days after the Iranian rial hit a record low against the U.S. dollar. Videos capturing the chaos. You can see massive crowds there marching in the streets. Police at some points tear gassing protesters. Crowds are demanding that the government address the nation's economic crisis, as well as its shattered defenses after the U.S. conflict with the U.S. and Israel. Joining us for more on this, Arash Azizi, contributing writer at The Atlantic and an Iranian affairs columnist for The National. Arash, great to have you, someone with deep knowledge, close ties to Iran. Curious what you make of these demonstrations. How does it compare to what we've seen in the past?
They're similar to what we've seen in the past, particularly to 2017 and 2019 protests, because they were triggered by economic demands. But let's be very clear. They're triggered by economic demands, but because the regime has for so long been unaccountable and is really not responding to people's demands, immediately people use the slogans like death to dictator. They come out against the entirety of the regime. What I find just striking is that there's such broad sympathy for people's demands. It's very hard to live in Iran today and deny that things have gotten worse. The currency has fallen to a third of what it was just 18 months ago. So it's very hard to deny this. And obviously even public figures like, well-known sports commentators, former government figures, all expressing that, look, people have a point and they have a reason to come out.
Would there be sanctions on Iran that are causing this?
What are you hearing from them right now?
I think I can say I hear two things. First of all, people sort of show a lot of sympathy. They understand that people are really fed up. As usual, people are really full of admiration for the bravery of people coming out, because we know what the regime does to people who come out. And these are people who from different segments. So bazaris, merchants, sort of traditional Iranian markets came out. Students came out last night, even though they were repressed. Some people were arrested in all over the country. So that's one feeling. The other feeling is that a lot of people, remember 2017, 2019, 2022, 2023, and they ask themselves the question of, how can we get out of this? How can the protests finally get to the result that they want, i.e. change government policy or change the regime sort of itself? And that there's a lot of frustrations, because people remember the failures of the past, and the failure is rooted in the fact that the opponents of the regime have not been able to build a political alternative, build a political leadership, and that's something that has evaded them. Iranians show a lot of bravery, but they're going to need a political leadership if they want to achieve their goals.
And we just put up a fascinating chart on our screen showing just how much the currency in Iran has plummeted. You're getting a lot less, you can see there, over time. 1 million rials, more than that, compared to the dollar. That means people are not getting as much for their money there. I'm curious, Arash, you've said that it's somewhat unprecedented that the president actually wants to meet with some of these protesters behind this issue. What does it tell you that they're willing to talk?
So President Pezeshkian is a reformist. He's someone who acknowledges a lot of problems in sort of Iranian economy and society. And he has tried to take this tack to say, look, we'll talk, we'll be able to answer some of your demands. And they're trying to do things. They changed the central bank governor. But unfortunately, this is quite limited. Because first of all, Pezeshkian doesn't actually control power in Iran. He doesn't control the security forces. Really, the power lies with the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, who as usual is nowhere to be seen. He loves to give boasting speeches.
I was about to say, isn't this a different president compared to the last time the country was protested in mass? Yeah.
He usually hides at times of crisis like this, at least for a while, as he did during the 12-day war with Israel earlier this year, where he basically hid in a basement for much of the war. And he has done the same
this guy likes him.
He's not as much public anymore. So Pezeshkian's promise there is limited, and it's also not clear what he can do, because the economic problems are really deep-seated. So it's not clear where this goes.
Nowhere to be seen as millions, as we pointed out, take to the streets. Arash Azizi, great to speak with you. Thanks so much for your time.
He's a self-made billionaire. That's not the same guy. That's not the same guy. That's not him, is it? He's a little biased. I don't know. All right. Let me see. What else I got? Let's see. We saw Israel barred aid groups. Actually, I saw it last time. Let me see what PBS News Weekend had.
Tonight on PBS News Weekend, President Trump says the U.S. will indefinitely run the country of Venezuela following the military's capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Then an on-the-ground report from Venezuela's capital, Caracas, as some celebrate the U.S. operation but worry about what comes next. And we head to one of the most remote parts of Alaska to see how the U.S. Census Bureau is making sure government grants get to the people who need them the most.
So many Libyan counselors saying that they're happy this happens as well.
Most of the time,
yeah,
like or boating.
Oh yeah, I love it when they behead the government in my country. It sounds fantastic.
People build community centers.
Skipping back to the news wrap.
Today's other news, Iran's supreme leader vowed today to crack down on demonstrators following days of protests. In his first public remarks since they began, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said rioters must be, quote, put in their place. Demonstrations will soon stretch into their second week as the country's currency, the rial, plummets. On Friday, President Trump warned Iran the U.S. would come to the rescue of any peaceful protesters who face violence. President Trump also weighed in
on... If anybody's going to be violent to protesters, it's going to be me, the United States, to our own protesters, all right? You protest in ICE, going to get arrested.
War in Ukraine today, saying he's frustrated with Russian President Vladimir Putin. He told reporters Putin is killing too many people. That comes as European national security advisors convened in Kyiv to discuss the latest peace proposals. The U.S. is currently behind a diplomatic push to end the almost 4-year-old war. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is set to meet with European leaders next Tuesday in Paris. Still to come on PBS News Weekend, why the city of San Francisco is suing the nation's top food manufacturers over ultra-processed foods, and how the Census Bureau counts every last person, even in the most remote parts of the U.S.
This is
PBS. If you protest Trump's authoritarian regime, you're not like that. Not like that.
In Gaza and found that
BBC investigation.
The BBC World Service has compiled material on over 160 cases where children have been shot in Gaza and found that in 95 cases the child was shot in the head or the chest. In most of these cases, the victim was under 12 years old. The cases we found run from the first weeks of the war up to July this year. The BBC...
Wow. Yeah. What are we doing about that? Here's PBS NewsHour yesterday or the day before? A couple days ago.
This week, the U.S. pledged $2 billion in humanitarian aid to the United Nations as part of a deal that will also overhaul how the U.S. funds foreign aid work going forward. The move comes after the U.S. paused nearly all of its...
left says, hey, they're killing kids, but Hamas.
Contributions earlier this year, leaving the UN and other aid organizations scrambling. William Brangham breaks it down. William?
That's right, Nick. That $2 billion is just a fraction of the $8 to $10 billion the U.S. has provided to support global humanitarian work in recent years. But it would still represent the largest commitment of any single country in the world. Yesterday, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres welcomed the news, saying it would, quote, increase our ability to save lives, deliver to the most vulnerable, and reduce human suffering. So to help us understand the significance of this new pledge, we're joined by Jeremy Konyndyk. He's president of Refugees International and a former senior USAID official in both the Biden and Obama administrations. Jeremy, welcome back to the NewsHour. So the U.S. pledges $2 billion and also says all of that money must now be funneled through one UN organization, the Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, or OCHA. What do you make of that amount and of that new funding structure?
So I think there are two different stories to those two questions. With the new funding structure, I think there are arguments, good arguments to say that that could, if it's done right, be a pretty efficient way to deliver aid, and arguably more efficient than some of the traditional ways of funneling it through this whole landscape of individual UN agencies. However, that really pales in comparison to what looks like a massive cut in U.S. humanitarian assistance. If you go back 2 years now to 2024, the final year of the Biden administration, the U.S. provided $14 billion of global humanitarian assistance. Now, needs in the world are just about the same as they were then. They certainly haven't gone down. If anything, they've gone up. And this is $12 billion less from that $14 billion. So if this $2 billion is the end of the story, and it's all the U.S. is going to provide, that is catastrophic, frankly.
Wow.
What do you think the answer to that question is going to be? Is this $2 billion a down payment, or is this it?
That is not clear. And that's actually quite important, because if you are the entire UN system working across these, I believe it's 17 countries that are eligible for this assistance, you really need to know if you're stretching that $2 billion out over the course of the next 12 months, or if this is just one of several payments. You're going to plan very differently. You're going to invest very differently. You're going to allocate that money very differently if this is the first tranche of several, or if this is it for the entire year. That kind of uncertainty is really tough for humanitarians to deal with. And I very much hope that it's not the final word, but I think it would be very important for the administration to make clear what their larger humanitarian funding plans are, whether that will ultimately go through this channel or others.
The U.S. also said that there are 17 nations that this aid can go to, and many of those are in dire need, as designated by the UN. But it also excluded 3 different nation states, Yemen, Afghanistan, and Gaza, saying that they're suspect about the governance in those places. What do you make of that exclusion?
I think Gaza is a bit of a unique category because the U.S. has been funding there just through other channels directly to NGOs, and hopefully that will continue. I'm more troubled by the exclusion of Yemen and Afghanistan. These are countries where obviously the current administration has a very adversarial relationship with the de facto authorities in both of those places, but that shouldn't be a reason why civilians in those countries who have massive needs should suffer. It's almost a double condemnation of Afghan women, for example. On the one hand, they have to live under Taliban-imposed gender apartheid, and on the other hand, because of that Taliban government, which they did not choose, now the U.S. is pulling aid from them as well. For many, many years, traditionally across administrations, the U.S. has drawn a distinction between a country's government and a country's people, and we want to support the people even if we are at odds with the government. This really demolishes that distinction, and I think that does huge damage to America's moral leadership and strategic leadership in the world in the long run, because people will remember that even after governments change.
One of the other accusations the Trump administration has made is that this new streamlined process will eliminate what they argue is the woke ideology in humanitarian aid.
Really?
The gender ideology, that climate change, that in fact no aid can go directly to climate-related projects. Again, what do you make of that exclusion?
I think it's, on one level, it's silly.
We're doing this like nobody needs to know about the climate. Nobody needs to know about climate change. And at the same time, we're taking all of Venezuela's oil.
Really misunderstands why those things are important. It's silly in the sense that the role of do
the oil and gas companies just completely run the United States now?
Is not about
like from top to bottom.
And frankly, there was not a huge difference in U.S. humanitarian funding priorities from the first Trump administration into the Biden administration. There was, I would say, continuity of probably 90+% of the programs that were being funded. But more importantly, gender considerations are really important. There is huge mass sexual violence happening in Sudan right now, mass sexual violence that happened over the past few years in the war in Tigray, mass sexual violence happening right now in Eastern Congo. That's what we mean when we're talking about gender programs. I would hope that rape survivors deserve U.S. support. I would hope as well that the administration understands that the role of climate change in humanitarian action is that it causes more droughts, which mean more people starve. And if we ignore that, we're not ignoring, they're not writing out some so-called woke ideology. What they're writing out is starvation and sexual violence and things that are really fundamental dimensions of humanitarian response.
All right, that is Jeremy Konondyke, Refugees International. Always great to speak with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The U.S. has contributed nearly $4 trillion in foreign aid since World War II. Wonder why we have to contribute so much. That's kind of weird. All right, artists hope to preserve and rebuild Gaza's cultural heritage.
Finally from us, a culture at risk. Gaza has suffered through catastrophic war since the October 7th Hamas terror attack on Israel. It has been a war that has severely damaged or destroyed much of a rich artistic history. Senior arts correspondent Jeffrey Brown looks at the loss.
They blew everything up, man!
That the arts could create a better future. It's part of our Arts and Series Culture Canvas.
A tapestry of color and coastline, old city markets, and ancient monuments. A place layered with more than 5,000 years of history. To the outside world, Gaza was known as a conflict zone, besieged for 16 years even before the war. But it was also filled with life, both everyday and extraordinary. Now much of it looks apocalyptic. According to the UN, nearly 2 years of Israeli bombardment has destroyed 90% of its built environment, its infrastructure, residential buildings. And as of November 2025, UNESCO has verified damage to 145 historical, religious, and archaeological sites.
Wow.
Palestinian officials say the actual number is much higher.
Gaza is not just a place of war and conflict. It is a place where cultural heritage has flourished for thousands of years.
Mahmoud Hawari is a professor of archaeology who teaches at several Palestinian universities and has spent decades studying Gaza's ancient past. He said the destruction is not just a humanitarian catastrophe, but an erasure of civilization's memory.
This is a huge loss, not only for the people of Gaza, but also for humanity.
Evangelicals be like, oh, well, yeah.
The history of Gaza belonging to human history and the human contribution to civilization as a whole.
From Bronze Age artifacts to Byzantine churches, Gaza's archaeological richness embodies the sweep of Mediterranean history.
In the last 2,000 years, it was an important port on the Mediterranean that brought merchandise from the east to the west. For example, the Roman Empire needed incense and spices that came from India through Arabia and into the port of Gaza and to the rest of the Mediterranean. In the Byzantine times, it was a learning center for Christianity. In the Islamic times, also it was a flourishing center of culture and learning. And the buildings and the archaeological sites in Gaza testify to these facts.
Among the lost treasures, the ancient ports of Anthedon, dating back 1,000 years. 6th century churches in Jabalia in central Gaza. The 1,600-year-old church of St. Porphyrius was thought to be the world's third oldest church. An Israeli strike in the first few weeks of the war destroyed it.
What the
fuck? 7th century Great Omari Mosque, a Crusader church turned early Islamic mosque with its towering minaret and marble columns, now in ruins. The 14th century Hammam al-Samara, an Ottoman-era bathhouse noted for its arched ceilings, marble floors, and heated systems, now a pile of rocks. The Khan Yunis caravanserai, a medieval gathering hub for merchants from around the world, reduced to rubble. And the Pasha Palace in Gaza City, first built in the mid-13th century, a seat of power during the Mamluk and Ottoman periods. Today it's a shell of its past glory, a historic structure reduced to rubble. It used to serve as a museum of history in Gaza and housed thousands of rare artifacts. Now local archaeologists are undertaking the impossible task of recovery. They told the NewsHour that so far, out of 17,000 precious artifacts, just 20 have been found in the rubble.
What the hell?
Most of the artifacts were bulldozed and stolen inside those rooms. Of course, the extent of the destruction is more than 70% of the area of the place. But now we are striving to restore this place to the way it was more than before.
I hope that this ceasefire holds for some time so that archaeologists can make an informed assessment of the real damage on the ground. But the decimation of archaeological and historical buildings is staggering, and we will have to grapple with for many generations to come.
Beyond heritage sites, Gaza's modern cultural ecosystem, universities, libraries, galleries, studios, art schools, has been nearly wiped out. A recent report by PEN America, an advocacy organization promoting
and
free
you see this
expression
this is the strategy of Israel, right? If you're able to not only do they want to wipe Palestinians off the map, as in, you know, further displace them from where they're already displaced, and make them refugees, not only within their own country, but make them refugees where they send them to like Somaliland, or, you know, neighboring countries like Jordan and Lebanon, and Egypt. But also part of that imperialist practice, colonization, is to destroy the history that was there to begin with. So that way you can replace that history with your own, or at least rewrite it to where that history is now it reflects the POV of Israel. So this is part of it. This is the destruction of the historical Gaza, the destruction of historical Palestine is part of that imperialist ambition.
World documents the destruction or heavy damage to 36 major cultural, educational, and heritage sites. PEN America concludes that many of the sites appear to have been deliberately targeted in breach of international law protecting cultural property. In a statement to NewsHour, the Israel Defense Forces said Hamas stores weapons inside civilian buildings, and that, quote, sites of cultural heritage and locations of historical and cultural significance are treated with the utmost sensitivity by the IDF. Meanwhile, for contemporary artists who've survived the war, the destruction is deeply personal.
Me and all my colleagues around me, we lost thousands of our artworks because of the loss of either our studios or our houses.
In Madrid, Spain, far from the ruins of Gaza City, artist Sharif Sirhan lives in exile.
No artist hasn't experienced loss of art. We all also experience loss and suffering from the conditions we are living in. Therefore, this is a case of two losses, the loss of family or loved ones, and the loss of the artist's soul, his work and his art.
In addition to making his own work, Sirhan ran the Shubabik Gallery that once held nearly 1,000 artworks, a heartbeat of Gaza's contemporary art scene. One Israeli airstrike in October 2023 erased a generation's creative archive. Yet Sirhan insists Gaza's memory should not be reduced to rubble and suffering.
We don't hear too much about Gaza's culture or art. What do you want people to know? How rich is that culture? How varied is it?
Here are two images of Gaza. The first image is always known in the media, which is that of war, destruction, siege, and suffering that people go through. And the second image is a beautiful Gaza, a Gaza that has hope, love, and art. And no one talks about this image that is always in Gaza.
Before the war, Sirhan built one of Gaza's most iconic public artworks.
Gaza is known to me a radical perseverance.
From concrete, metal, and remnants of earlier conflicts. It too destroyed in this war.
This work has become over the years a symbol of beauty and freedom in Gaza. Many people took pictures of it, as if it had become Gaza's monument.
Imagine you live all your life there, in place, your school, your childhood, your friends, your family, everything, and suddenly it's completely destroyed. It's completely gone.
In Cape Town, South Africa, 23-year-old artist May El-Shair carries her own fragments of loss from her hometown of Rafah. In her new exhibition in exile called Violet Dreams, May captures the dual pain of what's lost and the uncertainty of where to go from here.
Between what's going now in my country and for my people and what I'm facing now in a new place that I have to survive in and start from scratch.
May first fled Gaza for Egypt, where she worked with children from Gaza.
When I went to Egypt, I just stopped doing anything, literally anything. I couldn't even paint because I was really stuck in survival guilt. And then I met these children and I was like, at least they makes me feel like I have to survive because of them. After all of these things, I tried to paint again. Step by step, I just felt again that I deserve to live.
For May and others, Palestinian art is a form of record-keeping and resistance, a way to insist that behind the statistics are human beings.
I want to speak about Palestine and the people that I know. I don't want just to stay silent because they deserve to live. They deserve that people remember them. They are not just numbers. People have to see them.
For his part, artist Sharif Sirhan looks forward to rebuilding one day.
Yes, I feel hopeful. Without hope, I can't live. You always have to feel hopeful to have a good future. Maybe sometimes you feel a little depressed, but hope is what propels you to have a good future. So I am always hopeful.
For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Jeffrey Brown.
Hope for a better future.
Wait just a second. We have one more thing to share.
We want to say a heartfelt thank you for watching and supporting PBS News.
You're welcome. Bye. In case you missed it, I almost forgot about this one.
Well, Jared's the investor here. I'm not going to give you a percentage, but look, what we've seen the past week gives me great optimism the ceasefire is going to hold.
Jared's the investor here. J.D. Vance referred to Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, as the investor in Gaza, as he and Witkoff cook up a scheme to enrich their families on the backs of the horrors there. And the hunters are silent.
And if we get from where we were a week ago to a long-term, durable peace between Israel and Gaza, there are going to be hills and valleys. There are going to be moments where it looks like things aren't going particularly well. But given that, and given the history of conflict, I think that everybody should be proud of where we are today.
It's the master plan, and we're working with a group of people who have been working on master plans for the last 2 years.
So there are plans already.
Yeah. We have plans already. We have a master plan already. And by the way, and Jared's been pushing this, and we're working together on it.
I love Jared's face here.
I think if the world saw the progress so far, they'd be pretty impressed.
Yeah. Some crooked shit going on here. How Reuters documented the impact of Israel's devastating new weapon. What?
Has found that the Israeli army increasingly used a new and devastating weapon in the last months of the Gaza war, destroying buildings and some parts of neighborhoods in Gaza City. As Israel's military entered the city between
this is about the M113, the Zeldas.
August and October, aging armored personnel carriers,
car bombs, remote detonated car bombs,
known as APCs, were packed with 1 to 3 tons of explosives and detonated, unleashing a blast 2 military experts said could be similar to the power of a 2,000-pound air-delivered bomb. 2 experts in the rules of war said that the use of these low-tech weapons, alongside widespread destruction that left parts uninhabitable, raised questions about whether Israel's tactics to remove booby traps and other threats complied with international law. Israel's military told Reuters it respects the rules of war.
You could blow up an entire city block
to mitigate harm to civilians and civilian infrastructure.
And that's what they were doing. This is the shit they condemned the IRA for, yeah.
And interviews. Reuters was able to build one of the most
detailed, independent.
They use these M113s in southern Lebanon when they were fighting Hezbollah.
Of how Israel's vehicle-based bombs contributed to widespread destruction in Gaza City in the final weeks before the ceasefire.
This is how our journalists documented the scale of destruction caused by these vehicle-based bombs alongside airstrikes and armored bulldozers in the months before the October ceasefire. It all started with Reuters Gaza correspondent Nidal al-Mughrabi receiving early reports around August from sources on the ground.
People were telling me about huge explosions happening in northern Gaza Strip. They have described them as earthquakes.
Yeah.
In August, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel was using armored personnel carriers, APCs, as explosive-based bombs in order to destroy houses Hamas rigged with explosives. Hamas denies the allegation, and it describes Israel's tactic as collective punishment and war crime.
Gaza Civil Defense Authority said up to 20 of these bombs were being used each day in the densely built-up Gaza City in the final few days before the ceasefire in October, spraying debris and shrapnel for hundreds of meters. Reuters was unable to confirm how many APCs Israel detonated.
As weeks went by, I spoke
A
to
lot.
a dozen of people in Gaza who told
These
me
APCs are from like previous wars. Basically, they were they're cannon fodder, literally cannon fodder now. Of vehicles that are outdated, they can't be used. In war, in any logical war that they would have. So they just use them as disposable vehicles, disposable car bombs is what they've turned them into. And not only are they car bombs, I mean, nobody's driving them. They're remote controlled car bombs.
that they have seen military vehicles exploding and causing damages to buildings.
And so we started investigating.
Our TV crew on the ground filmed and documented widespread destruction of neighborhoods in Gaza City, including Tel El-Hawa and Sabra. They found and documented the remains of APCs strewn amid rubble, including twisted metal shrapnel, armored plates, and ABC tracks blown off for experts to review later.
Satellite imagery was a critical part of our work, and that's where the graphics team were able to really take a deeper look at some of the evidence. We used high-resolution commercial imagery to map the devastation across the various neighborhoods. We compared images taken on September 1st and October 11th, giving us a clear picture of destruction across that 6-week window. Building by building, we were able to document structures that were completely destroyed. Though we couldn't always determine whether it was from an airstrike, APC, explosion, or by other means, we counted 650 buildings that were destroyed.
We showed our footage of exploded APC wreckage to 2 military experts. They examined how the metal had bent and also how heavy parts like tracks had been blasted off. They said that in several locations, the damage and debris were consistent with explosive-laden APCs detonating in or near residential areas. A third expert helped us assess their power.
In a sort of fairly crude sense, you can imagine that each ton is roughly comparable to the blast power of a large 2,000-pound air-delivered bomb. So a 3-ton device is a very large blast indeed, and certainly capable of leveling a building.
Experts also explained to us how an explosion would unfold, including the potential blast radius and at what distances buildings could potentially be damaged. Illustration also played a crucial role in our storytelling, allowing us to explain processes that we couldn't capture in real time on the ground.
My team and myself have been covering the war in Gaza for the last 18 months. We've spoken to a number of officials, Israeli security sources, the IDF, a military historian, in essence to try and unravel why precisely these craft have been used. The APCs would come up to a building and then would be put in place and detonated remotely by Israeli military. Israeli security sources see this as a much more efficient way of targeting buildings without massive loss of life, but also to protect their forces on the ground. The Palestinians, on the other hand, saw this as just another example of maximum devastation which impacted upon their neighborhoods in Gaza.
I mean, literally collective punishment.
Reuters shared these
'Cause
findings.
that blast is going to be city blocks wide, man. That blast is going to affect every single building within a certain radius. That is complete collective punishment.
Military and humanitarian law experts. They expressed concern
The shrapnel
that the
on
wide
top of
area
that?
impact of these weapons and the damage to civilian infrastructure could make it difficult to uphold the principle of proportionality, a key tenet of international humanitarian law. Civilian buildings could lose legal protection under humanitarian law and become targets if Israel had evidence Hamas used them for military advantage. Israel's military did not respond to Reuters' requests to provide such evidence. The
Color me
UN Human Rights
surprised.
Office has highlighted what it described as wanton destruction aimed at making parts of Gaza uninhabitable. The Israeli military told Reuters targets were reviewed before attacking and that the weapons used were chosen to achieve the military objective while minimizing collateral damage. Hamas told Reuters Israel's demolitions were aimed at population displacement, which Israel has denied.
Wow. What a report. Oh, all right. It's yeah, pretty much what I wanted to cover. The rest of this we can wait on. Yeah, here's a part of Scott Jennings.
But inherently, for these artists, they're being invited to Washington to play for people. There'll be probably people of both parties.
Oh, yeah.
But inherently, for these artists, they're being invited to Washington to play for people. There'll be probably people of both parties, non-parties in the building. And I don't know why you would agree to do it in the first place if you had such a, political opposition to the administration.
Well,
in
Trump
power.
slapped his name on the outside of the
But
building.
so what? Right.
That's a memorial
So what?
to
So what?
President Kennedy.
He was already the chair of the board, and he's already the
has
president of the United
inserted
States.
himself and on politics
But
in
is
virtually everything that's coming out of the Kennedy.
But he's
family.
not forcing
that
the
has
artist.
happened.
He's not forcing the artist to engage in any political speech or any political
It
acts.
seems
They're
like
just
he
there to
is.
play music. So
Where
what would
you-
be political about playing your song?
Where you stand.
But inherently,
Music famously never not political at all. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, dehumanizing by removing the human element. I mean, in the story, they were just sending robots. Basically, it's a robot that came to blow up the city block. Is what they were
For
doing back
military
here.
advantage.
Yeah. It's All right. Yeah.